welcome to the Old Man Orange podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunigan.
As we're like climbing up the charts, we just like checked, we're like, oh dude, we're at 370. We're almost at 375 at our quarter mark.
Yeah, that's pretty trippy when you think about it. I mean, I'm already surprised at 300, so yeah. At this point, I'm not really, I'm kind of surprised, but I'm not like, wow. I remember there's a point where we reached like, wow, 50 episodes. Oh my, 100 episodes. You're like, oh dude, we're coming up on 200. Ever since 200, I've been like, yeah, that's cool.
It's weird, it's just like, yeah, it's another mark. It's another, notch on the old belt there, but I got so many as is that, well, what the hey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems like lately the way the format we got going, it's been a lot more of just like, because they just have like big movie after big movie coming out like every other week, it seems, or just about every week. I mean, next we got fucking Solo, and
I know.
You know what? I'm looking forward to it. I want to see it, and I'm not going in arms crossed like impress me, but I'm not really dying to see it. I want to see it. I'm sure it'll probably be enjoyable. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, and I love Star Wars, but I think I am starting to get to that point, a little bit of that fatigue of like, oh, this shit's going to be here every year, so it's a little less special.
Well, it's that. It's like, does this mean that episode 9 is coming out in Christmas, or is that coming out in next May? It's like, that's the weird part about it.
I think it's coming out next Christmas. I don't think it's coming out this Christmas, because that one just came out.
Yeah, but then again, that would have, it's like, it's almost like by jumping the gun, I thought they were like going even quicker. It's just like, oh, okay. Well,
maybe they are. I haven't really kept up with it. The way it happens is like they're making this new Star Wars movie. They are. You turn around and say, "Oh, here's a trailer." Like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah, I know exactly. There's just like almost like too much of it. And it's just, I don't know. It's weird how that is. Instead of like waiting a year, it's just like fuck it, wait 5 months instead. That's all we have to do. Oh, okay.
Just from listening to a couple early reviews, I don't take film criticism that super seriously, but this seems to be the first kind of oh yeah, it was alright.
Oh, that's kind of weird.
Because usually people usually seem to be very like, dude, best movie ever or worst movie ever. And this is the first one I've heard 2 different reviews. And like I said, I don't take it that seriously, but it's just kind of a good consensus of what most people are going to feel about it. This first one's like, oh, it was fun. It was whatever,
And that's always kind of the review you don't really want, generally. You want it to be either extreme on one hand or the other. Because when you get kind of that middle ground, it's like, well, what did we not do right? We didn't piss them off, and we clearly didn't make them excited. They're just lukewarm now.
Maybe people are, because, people say they're getting tired of sequels. People say they're getting tired of nostalgia. But, I mean, maybe it depends the way you do it or how much of it you do. Because I'm not going to lie, for a minute I was wondering, you know what? Infinity War is probably going to make a lot of money. But I wasn't expecting to break as many records because these are all characters everybody's already seen. And it's not like we haven't seen them not in a long time. We kind of see these characters very frequently.
Uh-huh.
So I was surprised. I knew it was going to make a lot of money. People can call me a dumbass, but I didn't think it would be box office shattering. I didn't think it was going to make more than Black Panther, in all honesty. I thought Black Panther was going to walk away with more because that movie was a big event and it was actually kind of, pushing things in a new direction. Where that movie, don't get me wrong, it's probably the biggest one they have, and it was all leading up to this big thing, but at the same time, I just figured, well, we've already seen all these characters before, and the big thing of it is, okay, so we get to see the Guardians meet the rest of the Avengers or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird how you just kind of wonder. It's like, when is it going to get to the point where it's not gonna it's gonna be like, okay, now we're on the downhill slope, But instead, it just keeps doing the thing where it's like, oh, yep, another big successful run. How about that?
Well, 1 or 2 will come out and it'll be like, okay, this is the beginning of superhero fatigue or sci-fi fatigue or whatever you want to call it. But then there'll be the 1 or 2 that come out that are like, oh, wait, no, it's back on track. I mean, that's what, Logan and Deadpool were. That's what nearly, not all, but most of the Marvel Studio movies are. And people, I mean, you and me both really liked Justice League, but a lot of other people are like, yeah, it was all right. It wasn't bad. It wasn't horrible. But there's some people who are like, it's the worst movie ever because they just want to kick down DC. But
yeah, it's just because they're like probably Marvel fanboys or something stupid like that just hate anything and everything DC, and that's just bound to happen, I suppose. But before we really get started in this episode, I just want to do a little shout out. Somehow, some way, I kind of fell down the stairs backwards into this other podcast on Comix Central. It's called the Indie Comics Club. and it's me and this guy named Craig who creates a comic called Project Savior. And yeah, it's just one of those ones, like, I literally, this one day, it's like, all of a sudden, it's like, you're hosting this show, get the fuck over there. Oh, okay. And it's just like, oh, okay, cool. So we're just talking, like, pretty much just indie, we just pick a couple comics off of Comix Central and then just kind of read and review them and kind of, not really, I call it review, but it's not like a review like, I need to critique this it's more like what we do. We're just like, yeah, let's just fucking talk about this shit, you know what I mean? And that's all it is on there, but just kind of trying to expose some extra light on the, certain indie comics / try to build up a community and kind of get that going. Because comic book people are a little bit more shut in. I don't know what it is about them, but they're not like podcasters. Podcasters are like the most open, free-loving, like fucking like help each other out kind of like nation. But I don't know what it is. Comic book people are like, well, you can buy my book, but I'm not going to help you. Fuck you. I don't know if they're all like that, but yeah, I don't know what it is. They want to go like lock themselves in a closet and keep making their books without fucking like doing any advertising or any like spreading the news or awareness. Where like, a podcast, you come up and be like, dude, you want a fucking review? Be like, shit, yeah, I want a fucking review. I'll give you a review. You give me a review. Yeah, fucking A right. And people are trading back and forth, but it's weird how it is with comics.
I think it's because they find themselves just hunched over their computer or hunched over their desk trying to just make this thing, trying to get it done. Mm-hmm. And that itself takes a lot of energy. So when people are like, yeah, please just take the fucking book, just read it. I think people are just mentally spent and exhausted. So that could be it. That's just me guessing more than anything else. But, as far as podcasting, I guess you got to be a little bit more sociable, which I feel bad. My Twitter game has been really bad for like the last year. There's a point where I was doing really good, but I just took a break, and that's been a very long break. I'll pop on there once in a while, but I noticed you've been all over Comix Central, and you've been like doing a lot of reposting and all that. You've just been making friends everywhere. I feel like a lazy sack of shit when I look at your like Twitter feed.
Well, and I feel like really at the end of the day, that's half the battle is fucking, advertising and talking and sharing and, making connections and so on. You would like to assume that, like, when you finish a book, that's you're like, I have done it. I am complete. There you go. There's 90% of the work all done and, just a little bit more advertising and that's it. But it's like, really, it's like you finish a book, you're like, yeah, you're halfway there. The other next half to go is advertising it and promoting it and selling it and book touring it and getting it in the hands of every male and female adult in America, god damn it, and the rest of the world too.
I'll probably be more socially active once mine's done. I'm working on one too, but I won't say too much about it now. But there's one I've been working on for like the last. I kind of changed it. I was working on it for about a year ago. Then I stopped. I was changing it around. Then I'm kind of working. I'm about halfway done with it as we speak. So that's something I'll be trying to get out probably as soon as I can. Not throwing a date on it, though.
Yeah, but make sure to look forward to that. It's called Into the Dirt.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's the name of it. Into the Dirt. You could probably find a couple like pictures of it on Instagram of work and stuff. But yeah, but you have How's Pizza Boys coming along?
I am almost done with the penciling of Pizza Boys issue 6, so that's good to know. That means that's like really like I feel like the longest like part of it all, because once you start to get to the inking and the paneling and like the lettering, it's almost more just like fill in the blanks now because you already kind of have it all set up, so you know what it's gonna look like. So it's just like, okay, go over, let's trace the lines, let's make them a little bit better, tighter, add this here, see where the balloons fit and so on. But yeah, it's like once you kind of get the penciling done, like, God, there was a page that took me about like 3 times. It was like I had a motorcycle and a car in the same fucking like panel or page, and it was like on every single shot, and you don't realize how much work drawing a motorcycle is above like a car because of just all the extra stuff in there. And then I started thinking about, I'm like, I've probably drawn in Pizza Boys in 6 issues, I have probably drawn more cars than like superhero comics and most other people's comics combined. For some reason, the sitcom comic has more cars than anything else, and it's like they always take the longest.
I noticed that you have a tendency to always like, okay, if there's a car, I'm going to use Dunigan's Subaru. That's what I'm going to use if there's a car.
Well, that's what Dunny's vehicle is. So I use it kind of like as like the main one, because back in the day, that seemed to be our vehicle that we like drove everywhere at. It's like, well, we're going to like a Modesto run to go buy movies and comics. Hell yeah, jump in the Subaru, and it just like would fly off into space, and it'd be like the heavy metal song playing like dun 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 dun. It's like we were traveling off on adventures. So I feel like I gotta use that.
Like some rotoscope 360 angle of the van of the Subaru.
Yeah, exactly. So things like that, and that's always just kind of fun in itself. But
not to beat ourselves up. I'll say it's not to beat ourselves up, but for the Subaru, I don't know. I mean, I still drive that thing, but it's at that point where I don't know if it's worthy of a heavy metal song. I imagine like that thing be panning around. It's like playing something like Hootie and the Blowfish. Like that probably more fits the spirit of like that. If you're gonna have some kind of like animated montage of that car, because it's like it's not cool enough for something like Blue Oyster Cult or White Snake or something like that.
Yeah, but I think it's just like sometimes there's just those certain cars. It's like they may not be like, I guess on paper the coolest car or like have like the bragging rights of it, but sometimes you just think about it's like, yeah, you know, at the end of the day, that's a pretty good car. It does quite a bit. It could drive through the snow. You know, it can fit all the the whole gang in there. You know what I mean? You can load things up if need be if you had to move. It's like, yeah, huh. It's that kind of, because when you're like a kid and you just kind of go like, man, you know what? Gotta have like a GTO, man. It's gotta be fucking awesome. Like, you know what I mean? Or like a fastback Mustang 1971 or like, something like that. And then as you get kind of older, it's like you get to the point you're like, no, I want a car that's comfortable, got just the right amount of room in it, but not too much. It's got good gas mileage. You start thinking of all those things instead, and the sound system works. God damn it, that is a very key concern.
It's kind of like it could be. I mean, the coolest thing it could be is for like the soccer mom that likes to take the dirt paths to pick her kids up from school.
Well, yeah, because it has that ability. It's like, well, you got the off-road, section involved here. You got the all-wheel drive going for you.
Yeah. I think that now I'm thinking back. I think you're the one that said that. I think I'm pulling that from you now, thinking back on it. But yeah, no, I noticed myself. I made the science fiction thing, and I'm like, I suck at drawing spaceships. And I'm like, but I made this science fiction thing. So now I have this whole plot device and reason as of why. There'll be ships here and there and other vehicles once in a while. But I'm like, I got to find a reason why they're not in space every other issue or every other page, because I don't want to draw a fucking spaceship over and over and over.
Yeah, well, that's how I feel about kind of cars, and I do. But I make sure I go the distance on cars, because I see so many comic book artists that just go half-assed on cars. And it's like, no, can't go half-assed on cars. I'm not saying mine are like, pure perfect, like in the, the exact perspective and everything's fantastic about them. Like, you could sell this to Ford and they would buy your design. It's like, no, not that good. But I go that extra distance to make sure my car just doesn't look just like some fucking square box with a couple of lines on it that you see in so many books. Even fucking big-name books sometimes have some shitty-looking cars in them.
Well, I know what I'll probably do. I have no problem in this. When it comes to drawing cars a lot, I mean, maybe if there's the one or two that look kind of interesting that need to pop up for a minute, I might draw. I'm at the point where, you know what? I have DAWS 3D. I barely use it, but I have that thing. And I have a couple of car models on there. I would probably just render out a picture of a car, throw a 2D shade over it, and just plop it in there and call it fucking good. Because, like, fuck, that's just way fucking easier. Don't have, I know that's lazy, but I didn't really cut. If I was making, like, a Fast and the Furious book, I feel like I'd be cheating the audience. But, like, nah, that's not really what this thing's about. So, there it is.
Well, you know what I would do instead of doing that? It is a little bit more work, but at least it would make it look nicer, is that do the DAWS 3D thing, and then just and then once you put it in there, just trace over the car now, so then it at least looks hand-drawn. So at least it doesn't have that, like, kind of.
Oh, there's ways to do it, to bring it into, like, Photoshop or Manga. There's ways to do it still like that.
Well, because there was actually literally today, I forgot. I was like, wait a second, I got this software that I forgot I sort of had, and it's called SketchUp or whatever. And I remember, this sounds like the weirdest thing, but like in Stan Lee's like How to Draw book, which I love how it's Stan Lee's How to Fucking Draw. Let a writer tell you
how to tell Jack Kirby to fucking draw.
That's what it more seems like. Stan Lee's How to Get Your Bitches Moving. But he's mentioned, like, it's weird to think, like, here's this 90-year-old man who told me about this software program for drawing, but it was like, I forgot I kind of had it, and I pulled it up. I'm like, because I was thinking of a certain angle, and I was like, sometimes, like, you have this angle in your head, but you can't really seem to, like, kind of get it right on paper. And I was like, wait a second, I'll pull this up. I kind of started messing with it. I'm like, oh, yeah, you could just kind of, like, import in vehicles, and, like, you could generally look up, like, whatever you sort of want. Like, I needed a state trooper vehicle from, like, Nevada, and somebody fucking had a model of it. I'm like, hell yeah. And then I needed, like, just like a van and a couple like backgrounds and so on, and just get into perfect perspective. And I just pulled that up and put it together and then just put it in there and then kind of traced over it after I had the 3D model sort of set up. And it was like, oh, this worked out perfect. It was exactly how I envisioned it. I could like dial it in and so on. Now, granted, the only downfall of that, though, is I think it made like one panel take like way fucking longer than it should. Like that probably took me like an hour and a half, but I was kind of relearning that program because I hadn't used it in like a couple of years.
Well, sometimes when you get the end result, you like what you you can't have. I mean, sometimes it might take longer than you plan. Like there's this one page I was working on, but when you actually kind of get done with it, like it took longer than it should. But actually, I'm pretty proud with the way it came out.
Yeah, and there's always kind of like that. Like that's like this last page you did. It took me like almost like 3 days to do it. Not like 3 full days, but like way longer than I expected. But it was just because fucking drawing motorcycles and putting, cars in there and so on, every single one. It's not like it was really like cars are moving or in action like that. No, it's literally like people sitting in their cars fucking talking to each other. But that in itself was part of the look, you know what I mean? I'm not going to half-ass it now.
Oh, I don't want you to spoil it here for everybody, but I kind of know a couple of the issues coming out. Is this the one where it's just the two of them, focusing more on just the two of them?
As in Vince and Dunny?
Yeah, I was trying to beat around the bush, but yeah.
Yeah, pretty much that's what this one is. Because I already have, like, in my back
Probably sounds gay when I put it this way. Like, I'm being all, like, quiet about it. Like, all hush-hush. Is this the one where it focuses on my character and your character?
They get together, They go on a road trip alone.
We're going to rule 34 this. I'm gonna beat all the fan comics to it if it ever happens.
No, this is the simple selling point to the Pizza Boys issue 6. It's titled, like, Held at Sword Point by 2 11-year-old girls.
Very long title. Well, that sounds kind of like you'd watch like an anime, and they'll have the next time on Inuyasha, battle at Demon Peak Head, strong like Sasori Karma strikes again, like some like fucking long like fucking paragraph of what like just spelling out the whole thing that happens.
Yeah, exactly. Just this really long ass one. Like, I feel like that one has. It does have a longer like subtitle than anything else, but I feel like it gets the point across, and it's like I feel like it's intriguing enough. Like, well, I gotta figure out what the hell this is about. This sounds weird.
Held at sword point by 2 11-year-old girls.
It's like that, and it's like I got some ideas for like the next issue. I'm always like, as far as writing goes, I always feel like I'm way farther ahead in that department than I am in the other one. Like the idea of running out stories, it's like. That's never going to happen unless people are, like, literally, like, making an issue every single week at my house, for me. Like, I'm covered there, idea-wise. Boy, we got ideas for days, especially if you pull out any of our old notes. Shit, there's so much stuff from, like, backlog since, like, high school.
I usually come up with the idea for the next thing somewhere in the middle of working on whatever project I'm on.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere within there, I'll draw something that looks all kind of weird. Like I'll erase it, it's not how I want it to look, and then that gives me an idea for something else, and that's how it usually happens. It's not so much about worried about running out of ideas. It's more of like getting it done, getting it done in time. It's just how long it takes just to get one fucking issue.
Exactly, that's kind of how it is. If you want to have a goal, you can join my goal of Pizza Boys issue 6, which is to have it done by July 1st, which is at George Lucas Comic Con.
July 1st. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm going to move as fast as possible, so we'll see. I'm already halfway done with it, so I'm just on the drawing, so we'll see where it's at.
But yeah, that's my goal. I don't know if I'll make it there 100%, but, the George, that's how I try to line it up with something. It's like, okay, you got to have it done by this point.
July 1st, that's the American Graffiti Con.
Yeah, it's like, the George Lucas. It's like the weirdest. It's like, it's a Comic-Con and a car show at the same time. So the people that are on the outside of the car show are probably not even going to come inside and vice versa.
They might go in there. I just imagine so fucking old guys in Letterman jackets just like, remember when we used to beat the fuck out of these kids?
Remember when it was okay to, like, take a nerd and strap him up behind your old pickup truck and just drive down the road and the police officers would fucking cheer you on? Yeah, I miss those days, too.
I feel like George Lucas used to be that to some extent, because he talks about, we used to drive in our cars, and we used to have fun, and just, picking up on girls. American Graffiti was my life. That was the way it was. We were driving cars, flipping them over, hanging out with Ron Howard, and then, at some point, he got into a car crash and hit his head, and he says, doctor said I should have died, but then I realized I had a purpose. I had a point. I had to stop fucking around and get in. I think he was one of those guys who's a little bit of a closeted nerd, because he's... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that's exactly what it is. He's like, well, I want to write these sci-fi stories, but I can't look like a fucking pussy in public. It's the 50s. You know what I mean? They'll think I'm retarded if I like to read.
Yeah. They'll hang me on town square for that.
Yeah. And call me a fag. Though I never sucked cock, it's just what they did back then. You know what I mean? It's 50s mentality. And then if you wore too much red, then you were a commie, so you had to watch that one too.
Yeah.
Couldn't be too good of a friend with somebody, or people might start thinking that you're spreading communist ideals.
Not too much eye contact. Can't stand too close to them. Can't share too much either. That falls into the communism thing.
Exactly. You know, you had to be real careful. The 50s was like walking on ice every single day. You know what I mean? And ice, if somebody put landmines underneath it as well, too. Or depth charges, whatever you want to fucking call them.
Here's the thing. You also couldn't run out of hair gel, because you have long hair to have the proper pompadour, but if they had no gel, that hair would come down, and then all suddenly, you're one of them.
Then you look like a woman, and you can't look like a woman, but if you slick that pompadour back, then you're back to being a man. It's a real confusing thing to try to explain to somebody. I tried to explain this to an emo kid at one point, and he just couldn't get it.
He just talked shit on Revenge of the Sith, so I punched him in the fucking face and walked out.
And, you know, somebody yelled at me and said, "Stop hitting that girl." I'm like, "It's a man, I think."
But no, just because you look back on this old shit, and I think he was like at that point where just like he was just like, I think he was just this guy who wanted to make a lot more sci-fi shit, but then as time went on, now he kind of regrets it. He's just like, you know what? I'm the guy who kind of created more of the modern nerd with all the shit I fucking make. And now I just gotta, all those people fucking hate me. I should have never fucking made it. I should have just stayed in my fucking muscle cars and kept on drag racing.
Let me went back to like, you know what, fuck you all. We're doing American Graffiti too. It's called Revenge to the Nerds. Wait, that's not gonna work out. That already sounds like a movie that already came out. Well, I'll figure out the title, goddammit. But what's gonna be about is good old 50s mindset coming back and taking on these nerds. In fact, it's gonna happen at a car show that's gonna be next to a Comic-Con, and all the guys are gonna go in there and do a fag drag. Oh, we can't say fag drag anymore? Oh, damn it. Shit, life is so difficult nowadays. Why does that have to be so difficult?
I feel like, so this whole thing is just a setup. He's just like, don't worry, we'll bring them to us. And we'll get them inside the building, and we'll surround them with the cars. So it's like it's Assault on Precinct 13, but at a Comic-Con.
But it's a bunch of like cars, like a nerd's like, oh, I'm trying to leave here, and then a car's like, vroom, vroom, just like running up to him, like, oh, Mr. Car, please don't run me over. I'm slow and delicate.
It's like a 1963 Datsun just revving up like, no!
It's almost like Maximum Overdrive, except it's just old guys inside driving.
You have the part where the one kid just gets flattened.
Yeah, with the steamroller.
Yeah. What's
like
that doing
AC/DC
here? I don't discriminate. That's a nice paint job. Bring it on in. Yeah, let the one with the Green Goblin paint job come in too.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I look forward to seeing what this Comic-Con's like, just because it's like, it just sounds like such an odd, like, two different people. It really, what it reminds me of is it reminds me of like a Comic-Con, like some father and son like teamed up to put this together. Be like, well, Dad really likes cars and car shows, and boy really likes. Dad, I'm 35, and boy really likes books and action figures, and, you know, dolls. Oh, they're not dolls. Yeah, that's not what it said on the package. I was really hoping it was going to say action figure on there. I really wanted to believe you, son, but I picked it up and it was a Barbie. It was a Barbie of Batman, and I didn't know what to think. Was that Ken under that mask? I don't know. I'm just very confused.
So you can go inside the shame box with all the other boys and their dolls and their picture books, while me and the real men are outside in the outdoors, enjoying the sun, showing off our cars.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some speakers up right next to the door with Boys to Men playing. So if you feel like walking through it, you will literally go from being a boy to a man. It's the changeover is what you need.
You see the one guy friend, like, doors open up, it's all light outside. He's like in a Boba Fett outfit. He stands out there. He slowly pulls off the helmet. He looks out there in the light. Some of his friends stop, all cosplayed up, stop and turn. Like, no, don't go. He looks like it's time. And it's so hard to say goodbye from Boys to Men's playing as he's walking out there into the light.
He walks out there. He's
a man now.
The light's like scolding, and it's like he can barely see. It almost looks like pitch black's like second sun coming down on him as he's like out there venturing.
He says like, I'll see you on the other side one day, maybe.
He's just like stripping off like his armor and throwing his gun. I'm like, no, don't throw your blaster on the ground. I think it's time I grab a real gun. It is a real gun, damn it! It is! You just gotta believe!
There's some dad like in a fucking... There's some dad with a fucking Corvette in like a ZZ Top shirt from like a tour they did back in like 75.
Yeah.
Like, welcome to the party, son. You're a man now.
He's like, here, take this stogie and light up. You know what I mean? Tastes a whole lot better than dick, doesn't it?
As he lights it up, his hair forms into a pompadour.
It just like naturally slicks back. Dad just grabs some oil off the ground and just like rubs it across his head, almost like in Road Race or what's that? Road Racers, the fucking Robert Rodriguez movie.
Yeah, that's the Robert Rodriguez one.
Yeah, that's the one where the guy just literally is always like picking up oil from somewhere and just like slicking his hair back, and it's just like as greased up as you can possibly be. Like, it's like over the top greased, like in a sense.
Just nasty.
Yeah, exactly. One of those ones. It's like you become a man now. You know what I mean? Now we can all stand out here and get in our lawn chairs and drink beer and talk about the good old days.
Oh boy.
That's what that event's going to be. There's going to be a lot of magic happening there, boy, I tell you what.
I want to actually, since we're on the topic of just kind of like that time period, we'll get to Deadpool 2 and all that pretty soon. But I was thinking about Grease the other day, the musical.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not sure if we ever talked about this in the show. I think we may have talked about it in person with each other. But maybe I'm missing a key point. But is that meant to be satirical, or is that meant to be like, hey, I know you got your dignity, but don't be a prude. Just shut the fuck up and suck his dick. Show off your tits a little bit.
Yeah, it's got a confusing ending. I definitely will say that.
Because isn't the whole thing? Don't stop me if I'm wrong here. It's been some time since I watched it.
It's in theaters next week.
Joy for that.
So just saying, there's possibilities.
Tell me more. No. There was what was I gonna say? All right. So if I remember correctly, they were like, "Oh yeah, we were having a date. We're doing this, we're doing that. We're singing. We're just hanging out." And that's almost kind of like he wants to go hang out with this girl, but the boys want him to go hang out with them. Something to that effect. And I think it's just kind of like two groups trying to pull them away from each other, almost kind of like a very soft Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. If I remember correctly, maybe I'm wrong there.
No, it's definitely that.
And then they're on a date. He makes a move and just jumps on her. And she's like, no, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. She leaves him. And then later, like, she just bumps like, what's wrong, honey? Oh, he tried to get me to suck his dick. And I didn't. Well, you should have. Why? It's the 50s. So, like, suddenly she's all like just super like sexy, and next scene black leather jacket, smoking a cigarette. Now she's a bad girl. Like, all right, cool, let's fly away in this fucking car now. Am I missing anything? Was there a big point, or was there like some kind of, I don't know, is it just very like, oh yeah, I just gotta loosen up and like let him slam my cooch?
I don't know. As I said, it's like I can, for as many times as I've actually seen that movie back in the day, like it is kind of escaping me, like those in between scenes of like where probably like actually stuff's happening that's progressing this like transformation. But
I remember he has a race. He has a race with another guy before that, and the guy actually has like those spike things that old battle chariots would have into his wheels.
Oh yeah, that's right. He does.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're racing in like the Terminator 2 fucking LA section. That's what I always think about.
That's right, yeah.
Whenever I see those, like, even though they appear in so many other movies, but that's like the first thing I think about is like the aqueducts of like LA. It's like, oh, Terminator 2. That's where John Connor was escaping from the semi-truck driven by the T-1000.
Was he on a little like motorized bike? I don't remember.
Yeah, he was on like just like the most teeniest, probably like 100cc motorcycle, because it's just like, wee! It's like, dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Whee! And then of course Arnold comes flying in on the Harley and has to save the day.
That speaks to Cameron's ability as a director, the fact that he can make that not seem ridiculous and amazing.
Well, yeah, it's just like that's how just like totally badass. And plus, it's like it's the small things too. It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger reloading the shotgun with one hand by spinning it around. Because I remember at that point on, we had there was that toy shotgun. Remember that like one I had is kind of like metal and plastic that somebody fucking set on top of the heater and it melted, which I think it's Cisco that did that. But
I was gonna say nothing, but like I think it was Cisco. Oh, he beat me to it.
And it was like, goddamn, because that shotgun was one of those ones where you could do the Terminator 2 like reload with it. You could spin it around because it had just the nice the cocking mechanism, and you just go boom and just spin it around. We used to do that all the time until it melted half of it, because half of it was metal and half of it was plastic.
That was our go. We just called it the T2 gun. If we were filming a movie, like grab the T2 gun. If we're gonna do a zombie movie, so we need the T2 gun.
Well, yeah. So it's like you could always look badass doing fucking cool reloads with that one-handed reloading, which would also smash your finger about every third time you did it, probably, or pinch it.
But you were young, so you'd heal quick.
Yeah, you could take that sort of punishment.
But speaking of healing quick and all that, we both saw Deadpool 2.
Yeah, and boy, was that fucking like that was almost like what I'd say is like one of those like perfect examples of like how a sequel can be like totally fucking dialed in and just like as perfect as can be, and almost one of those ones where it's like that is actually one of the best superhero movies, best X-Men movies that I've actually really seen. Like I was really impressed, and like, you know, I like the first Deadpool quite a bit. But, you know, it's still an origin story. It's an origin story done really well, but at the end of the day, it still is an origin story. So I'm always one of those people like, let's just get to the bread and potatoes and meat and butter of it all. And boom, that's what Deadpool 2 is. It's like we're jumping in, we know who Deadpool is, we can just kind of go with the story, and that one just fucking takes off and never stops, and it's really good. You know, and though it's like the comedy in it, and that's okay because it's Deadpool, you can't expect it, it still has like a hardcore serious story backing it up the whole way through. And I was just super impressed. Fucking Cable was out of sight. You know, everything was amazing in this film.
Yeah, I'll say when it first opened up, I did have a little bit of this immediate, like, oh, fuck, he did that. But at the same time, I kind of understand, because that's what the comic is. The big thing, spoilers ahead here.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing about Deadpool, the first one, is it's a love story. And it works totally fine like that. But Deadpool, even though he has some relationships, and he did have a relationship with Jessica, or Vanessa, who becomes, I think, Copycat. When I first saw it, I actually thought, I didn't know her real name, but when I first saw it, I thought she was Domino. Then I think Caden, who's been on the show, clarified, like, no, she's Copycat. Domino's a different character who comes in later. I'm like, oh, okay.
Which she would have made actually a really good Domino, too. You know what I mean? Like, she has the look like you would kind of expect of almost classic Domino. Though I actually like this Domino in this movie a bunch, too. I thought she did a good job.
She was Domino in this movie is probably one of the best parts. Yeah, I mean, it's really the three people who are probably the best parts of the movie, or the three they're mainly shown on the poster and the trailer, which is Domino, Cable, and Deadpool, of course. But everyone else does a really good job.
Yeah,
too.
Colossus is amazing once again too, and yeah, all the other stuff they add in there. It was like super impressive, like how they kind of went about this.
But when they open up and they kill Vanessa, I was immediately kind of like, oh damn it, that kind of like it makes kind of like all the point of the first one a little like, not, I don't want to say pointless, because it's still a really fun, enjoyable movie, but it's a little bit more one of those things like, oh man, you had to go and kill her off. Her she was the entire point. She was the entire goal of the first one. Now she's gone. But at the same time, I understand why, because they kind of wrote themselves into a corner there, because Deadpool's not about him in a relationship. Deadpool is just about him taking weird, odd-end jobs and having a fun time in the process. And I think him just being happy with a girlfriend the whole time would have definitely slowed that down. So even though it sucked to see her die at the beginning, I understand why they did it. And the movie even poked fun at it too, when they did that whole 007 style opening credits with that Celine Dion song.
Well, that was, I will say, like, there's a couple moments in this movie where it's almost like they give you like such a hard-edged moment, and then all of a sudden it's like, you cut to a part where you're supposed to laugh, but it's almost like, it's not time to laugh yet. I'm still mourning. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying it's like a bad one, like sort of like the Marvel Studios would have done like something like they would have thrown a joke in there, and then it would have felt like it broke the mood. This one almost doesn't feel like it broke the mood. It just feels like I almost needed a little bit more time between these scenes. I almost needed like an in-between scene to kind of happen. And it happens like 2 or 3 times in Deadpool. It's not really like a bad thing, but it's almost like they have such these hard moments. It's just like, oh God, you almost need to take this in a little bit more.
The part when she dies, because when she dies, he makes a small joke, because they show this montage of him just killing all these guys, just being a contract killer, and it leads to this one guy, and he has to get to his date, and he's like, fuck it, I know where he's at, I'll be back later, it's my anniversary. Goes, we see this little scene where they're just having a good time. You see, because I think that's another thing is, I'm trying to blank on her name, but she was in Firefly.
She's in Gotham.
She's in Gotham. Yeah, she's a fantastic actress. But she and Ryan Reynolds play off each other amazingly, and you just kind of like them both. And the thing about it is, when she was in the first one, it wasn't just like, oh, she's the hot chick. She actually was equally as funny and equally as quick-witted as him. So I think that's one reason why they both play off each other very well. He's not written to be better or funnier than her. And then, so once she goes, it really does hit you hard, and it actually comes off pretty dramatic, you know. Because he kills a couple of guys. He makes a small joke about oh man, I almost had to kill somebody with the cream cheese spreader or something like that. Mm-hmm. Then she gets taken out, and then music goes. Then the sound goes out. It just becomes, you know, just dramatic music. He's beating the fuck out of this guy in the rain. Then he hugs him and throws them themselves both in front of a car, and then it starts off this 007 style opening, and it's kind of like, oh, is it gonna be serious? And all of a sudden they do the funny opening credits thing, like brought to you by what the fuck. I'm like, oh, okay, now it's actually doing the funny thing again.
Yeah, that's about. I guess if there is like it's like if you almost. I mean, it cuts perfectly to go into that 007 theme, but almost like you almost need just like a little bit of a barrier, I think, between like this hard, serious moment and then going straight funny. But maybe that's what they want. Maybe they want like a hard cut of between comedy and like, you know, serious drama.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And but as the movie goes on, then he's depressed and he's just they're talking about having a kid, and he just tries to kill himself. And in the process of that, the X-Men find him, and Colossus is trying to reform him. And I like how they just double down on this one joke. Because the first one, he says, it's funny whenever I come by here, there's only two of you. It's like the studio didn't want to pay for another X-Men. And then in this one, he's walking around there saying, where is everybody? Where are you? The only two here. And like, all right, it's the same joke. And then it cuts to a room, and you have the entire cast of the new X-Men in there, and they just like close the door.
I love that. I thought that was amazing right there. I was like, yep, that's perfect place to put that in there. Just have everybody kind of like, yeah, we'll just hide out. We don't want to see Deadpool.
I just thought that was... Because this is one of those things like, all right, you're making the same joke. Like, oh, fuck, they like... Okay, yeah, they don't want to pay money. Like, oh, they're willing to pay money, but they just don't want to fucking be there.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of just works out, like, in a sense. Because that was what I kind of felt about the first one, too. Like, the first one, though it's a really good movie, there's some things in there, it's like, man, if it just had a couple more characters in it, or... It has, like, the feeling of almost, like, a low-budget movie, which, not, like, in a bad way, but, like, it's just missing just a couple extra things. I mean, I know they joke about it, but it's like, hey, you know, if they just threw a couple more, you know, X-Men characters or so on in there, that'd be awesome. Where this one, I feel like, throws all, like, the extra characters you wanted in there anyway, so you're good to go.
Mm-hmm. And they're also, I mean, they're not shy about it. They're also trying to get you ready for X-Force, trying to make a spin-off of that, which I'm wondering if Deadpool is going to be part of that team, because he is a member of X-Force along with Wolverine, along with X-23, along with Domino and other characters. So I'm wondering if he's going to be part of the X-Force movie, if that ever happens, or if it's just going to take a little bit of, like, because they said it's going to be a little bit more of a middle ground between Deadpool and X-Men. Like, it's not going to be over-the-top comedy, but it's going to be a little funnier than X-Men, but at the same time, it's not going to have as much of the fourth wall break type stuff. But it's going to be more rated R.
Well, yeah, because, you know, like, because X-Force is like, you know, nowadays people think of it as like being a full-on Deadpool team, but it didn't used to be that. For the longest time, it was just more like the Renegade section of X-Men characters, you know, and a lot of times it's more like Cable was, I think, like one of the bigger characters of that, and Deadpool just kind of came along as time went on. So I look forward to that if that's the case. And this is a perfect example also, too, of like why it's nice to have the Marvel stuff be separated is because once again, you don't get stuff like Deadpool 2 if it's all in the Marvel's, you know, Studios universe and so on. And granted, it looks like it's going towards that as time goes on. I feel like there's only so many movies left to be made that will be in this like hardcore rated R section, but you never know.
I feel like Disney will be smart enough to realize, you know what, this is why people like this character. We'll let it be rated R. I don't think they will let it happen at first, but since they've seen it makes a profit, I think they will let that continue to happen that way. I'm just guessing. X-Force,
hopefully
I
as
don't
time
know.
goes on,
Deadpool.
The only reason I say that though is because that
Go-
Disney doesn't really have anything that backs up like they have nothing that's even borderline rated R in movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not in the movies. They do for the Netflix show, but not the movies.
Well, even though those
I
are more
could
just
still
like normal
see-
PG-13s. Maybe a little bit.
No, they're not. They're
PG.
pretty. No, they're not. They're pretty violent. They
Do they eventually get there?
Luke
Because all
Cage.
the ones I saw never were. They were just like they felt like a standard TV show, like something that would have been on FX or something.
Well, I mean, Jessica Jones gets pretty violent. You got a scene where somebody is forcing their hand into a blender and getting it chopped off. You got Nuke, the guy who's like, I need a blue, I need a red. That guy from Daredevil. You got a scene where he's eating out a lady's pussy. So, I mean, they don't hold back. But the whole thing is, well, this is the Netflix stuff. It's in the same universe, but while they're off cracking jokes and hanging out with raccoons and trees over here, these guys are over here in Harlem, and they drop the N-word like every other word just about in Luke Cage. So those are definitely R-rated shows. Daredevil season 1 had a couple of like, oh, that's a little more R-rated than usual, but nothing too intense. But as it goes on, they all get way more violent. Even like the Punisher.
Because all the stuff I saw was just like, it felt like, because even in Punisher, I was kind of like bummed out. I'm like, well, this seems like the PG-13 version of a Punisher movie, a hard PG-13, but not like the rated R I was expecting from like Warzone Punisher or even the second Punisher movie.
It was probably more around like Thomas Jane Punisher. It wasn't Warzone Punisher, but it was definitely... I never finished Punisher because...
Boring.
I had friends. Yeah, it was boring. It was my
Sadly
thing is
enough,
they're
I
trying
hate
to make
saying
it more...
that about Punisher, but like it was just like it was not gripping me whatsoever. And Punisher is one of my favorite characters from Marvel, and just like, God, you guys don't. It's just so slow.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it gets better at the halfway point, and I was like right around the halfway point. But my thing with it was, I felt like they were trying to make it more of like a political espionage thriller when. But I think you could still have more action in it. And the thing is, when I was watching, they were really hiding that skull. He was barely wearing the skull. And I know it's like, well, it's Punisher. Like, I know it's Punisher, but at the same fucking time,
yeah,
I know him when he has that skull. So I know he has it. I saw him at the beginning of the episode, and he wears it at the end of Daredevil. Just throw on the fucking skull, and maybe he does at the halfway point. But at some point, I just tuned out because it was just moving too slow. But there's some good moments in it, and there was like a part where it's flashbacks to his war days, and I want to say he's going down a hallway, just stabbing fuckers in the face, shooting away, blowing away at point blank range with like a shotgun, like a pistol. So it definitely gets more R-rated, and it takes place in that same universe. But as far as the movies, they've always been PG-13. I think that once they get to Deadpool, though, they realize what a money machine that is, and they're going to let Deadpool be Deadpool. And they're going to let... I wouldn't surprise you the least bit if they even let Ryan Reynolds stay Deadpool, and he says, like, sorry, contract negotiations bring me down over here. I could see something kind of like that.
Yeah, just having some insight kind of jokes. But yeah, it's like with Punisher, it's just like, I really think Punisher is just better done. He's not a TV character. He should be a full-on movie character. That's what the Punisher needs to be. I feel like it almost feels like they're cheapening out when you don't have Punisher, like, on the big screen. And I know some people be like, well, he's not really the biggest character. I'm like, yeah, but he needs that big budget. At the end of the day, Punisher needs a movie, like, and I think he just works better in movies, because, like, you got to just give Punisher like his elements that he works best in, and I think it's just like you need the over-the-top violence. You need to have him have some kind of like almost like a reason. Like he's got his political reason, whether it's like he's about saving somebody or what he has to do. That main driving goal, you have that in there that kind of gives you an idea or a placement or whatever's going on. But it could be all done in a movie, like a singular movie is like where it's at.
I'd like them to reach this point, and we'll go back to Deadpool in a second, but like in the Marvel Studio universe, I mean, I don't know, it's probably some time off, and they're probably going to change the identity to Red Hulk, because they probably don't want, William Hurt probably doesn't want to be like, oh, I'm getting really mad, and just make an angry face, and then CG him into a red monster. They're probably not going to do that. But, yeah, even though I think that'd be funny to see, like, fuck it, I'm 70-something, let's just fucking do it. I would like to see them do. At one point in time, I want to say there is a team, because there's a team of the Thunderbolts, which is essentially Marvel Suicide Squad, which you know, their villains aren't really as cool, but there's a variation of it where it's just more of a team of their anti-heroes, and it was Ghost Rider, Deadpool, Elektra, Red Hulk. I'm not sure. Did I say Punisher already?
You didn't say Punisher.
Punisher, and then I want to say maybe Wolverine. But those five, at least those five right there, just like that would be an amazing fucking movie.
Oh yeah, right there in itself, that would be awesome. But yeah, and that's the other thing too. It's like I know this is kind of like a weird kind of thing, but it's like almost in Avengers, like the Infinity Wars. I always kind of wonder, like, are they gonna like bring in Luke Cage or any of those other characters in there, or Daredevil? And it's kind of like I felt like that was almost like a lost opportunity to not have that. Maybe if they're really smart, they'll bring it in for the second one. I mean, at the same time, I know that they're probably doing the thing where they're pretty much keeping like the TV and the movie universe completely separate, just for the fact they're like, well, what if somebody didn't see the TV show? And it's like, well, you don't have to like explain. I mean, it's just be like, there's Punisher. What do you know? He's walking. He's got a gun. Oh, what's he gonna do? Oh, he's gonna shoot that gun. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like
who? Yeah. Well, who knows where the next one's gonna go? I mean, you could have who knows where it takes place, but next one you could have like an attack somewhere in the city, and then like, you know, say like some alien invasion or some gang or whatever, and then they get over there like, who's holding off this section of the city, and they see Luke Cage, they see Daredevil, Iron Fist, if you feel like it, and maybe Punisher and Jessica Jones, and like, you know, just a quick scene, not really huge, not really, you're like, oh shit, they're there too, you know?
Yeah, I just feel like it's not one of those ones, like, it's not really gonna like confuse people, like, oh, who are those guys? I mean, they're always gonna be, you know, somebody who's like, who's never watched the show. I'm not saying that everybody's watched the show, you can't assume that, because clearly I haven't even watched any of the shows, and here's the thing, somebody who likes Marvel a lot, and they're not even watching the TV shows, so... But it's just one of those ones, like, I just thought, like, I'm like, that would have been the opportune time just to, like, throw them into some movies. It's like, when you got a movie that has everybody else known to mankind, why not throw them in there, too?
Well, who knows? They might do it eventually. I think they're just trying to... They don't have to, but I think it might as well. Maybe just have a scene... If they have another, like, a scene, like, in Harlem or somewhere, like, where... shit's going bad, or if they have another New York attack, I think it'd be cool to just have like, oh shit, the Defenders were kind of holding off this section of the city. But the way the Defenders ended, I mean, who knows? I don't know when season 3's coming out. Where the Defenders ended, they think Daredevil's dead.
They're already on season. They're already coming up on season 3 of the Defenders. Jeez, I thought that just came out.
Oh no, of Daredevil.
Oh, Daredevil. Okay. I was like, Jesus Christ, so they're just pumping those things out faster than like DC pumps out TV shows.
No, Defenders is on season 1, and that ended with them thinking Daredevil's dead, but clearly not. You know,
clearly not. He's got a season 3 coming out.
Well, it's the same reason why I wasn't all that sad when T'Challa and Spider-Man died, because like, well, I know you guys got movies in the fucking pipeline. So.
Well, yeah, they're not going to kill the cash cows. That's why it's funny because I keep running into people. They're like, "Oh my gosh, can you believe that they killed Black Panther?" I'm like, "Dude, they didn't. Are you fucking retarded? Like, they didn't kill him." It's like, did you see how much fucking money Black Panther made? Like, he ain't fucking dead.
I was in like a line at like a cafe, and there's two little kids behind me, like 10 and like 9, around that age range, and they're talking about like, man, I saw Infinity War, dude, was it good? Like, it was okay. Why? They kill a bunch of people. I'm like, oh fuck. And like their dad's right there. And I'm just like, I want to turn around and just like, no, you fucking idiot. Stupid, like me, like this 30-year-old guy to this kid. No, stupid!
Learn business, you dumbass.
You want to just be that fucking bully kid that just fucking, you know. But it's one of those things where like, yeah, I mean, like, you can tell me, I don't care if you spoil it. Well, they kill like Black Panther and Spider-Man. It's like, they just got there. What? They didn't kill him off. No, they totally kill him off. I'm like, oh my god, you kids, you have the fucking internet, right? I'm assuming you... God damn it, you know?
I'm surprised that like one kid didn't go like 90s on him and be like, well, how'd Spider-Man die? Well, he was like literally ripped like limb from limb, just like over and over again. It was like super violent. Like I couldn't believe that's how they killed Spider-Man off, you know, just making shit up. You know, that's how it used to be. I think pre-internet people just made shit up.
Oh, they did, and then you'd go see the movie, and you come back like, that didn't happen. Oh, well, you know what? The way it worked out was I didn't realize at the time, but I have a cousin that works for Marvel, and when I went to go to the theater, they actually showed me a special, like, secret cut that only a handful of people get to see, and I was one of them, and, like, so, you know, but it's all secret, and we're not supposed to know, but that was, like, in the original version. Just like in the original Pokemon, the first movie, Misty gets naked for a second, and then fucks Brock in his shower. What? Yeah, it happened.
It's still rated G, you know. That's Japan for you.
That's like, you know, they're what's like rated X over here is rated like G in Japan. Like, oh, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, it does.
Oh, just those guys just so
shitty. Those fucking kids that always just make shit up because, you know, you have the fucking internet. You couldn't prove them wrong.
No, exactly. There's no way to. You just gonna assume like, well, like he must know more than I do. Why
would you lie to me?
Have I seen the Japanese cut? No, I guess that's it then. But
anyway, back to Deadpool.
There's a long tangent of going off there. See, Deadpool doing everything right. Go Fox. That's all I have to say. Right there. For everybody who wants to put Fox down, I'm going to say go Fox. You know, at the end of the day, Fox is definitely an up and down company, but whatever. They made Colossus fucking awesome. They brought back the Juggernaut, which I thought was pure amazing. You know,
I'm glad they didn't advertise Juggernaut, because Juggernaut was one of those characters. Like when they were, I'm like, it's got to be somebody, but I wasn't thinking it was Juggernaut because I'm like, they would have advertised him, right?
Yeah, well, I was almost thinking, I'm like, well, maybe it's fucking what's his name from he's more of a Wolverine villain, but I was thinking, I'm like, well, this is the place you could have put him in there too, and they've never used him yet.
Red?
Yeah, Omega Red. That's what I was thinking. I was like, maybe it's Omega Red. That would be awesome. And it's like, but once it was a Juggernaut, I'm like, no, that's actually still cool. Even though Juggernaut's already been in one movie, it's like that character needs more screen time anyways. And I thought that was a perfect place to put him in there. Colossus was the perfect person to battle him. You know what I mean? It made for an awesome kind of showdown towards there. And
it is this. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and that was just like, it was awesome. He was like the perfect way. You kind of had this nice build up. I mean, I guess maybe you could have said, because like it's the biggest guy in there. It's like, well, who else is the biggest guy? But.
Well, it could have been just some miscellaneous. I'm not gonna lie, X-Men has thousands of characters, not hundreds, thousands of characters. So it's one of those things. They could have just made someone up. Like, he's probably in the comics. I'll be honest. When they showed most of the guys of the X-Force, which that was really fucking ballsy what they do with them. But when they show most of the guys of the X-Force, I didn't know who most of them were. I knew who the Terry Crews character was, and I heard of Shatterstar, and then. But then everything else, though, I'm like, I was not expecting to do what they did with that. And I just thought that was too fucking funny. I feel bad for Terry Crews, but at this exact same time, I think it was worth it just for the joke.
Well, that's how I kind of felt, too. I like a mixed feeling about that one. Like, I liked it as a joke, but I also was kind of bummed that, like, oh, well, that kind of minus out. I mean, like, I feel like you could have kept, like, a couple of them. Like, maybe keep Terry Crews and let everybody else kind of go then or something like that. I mean, I know that makes for a... like, I guess a differently balanced team. And in the long run, you kind of see what the team turns into, and you're like, no, that is pretty cool if those 5 ones, and so on. But I did think, I like how it actually introduced the Mojo world because of that, which was like, oh, sweet. Because, you know, they've never mentioned that before in any of these X-Men ones. So the idea that there's now the other dimensions, that's kind of cool.
Well, on top of that, when they... the thing about that is, I'll be honest, I didn't really know most of those characters, and I looked up some of those characters once it's done, and it doesn't really bother me because most of those characters were like just kind of weird, random, offbeat characters. Like Zeitgeist, he was at one point in time, it was like some weird art incarnation of X-Force. He was the leader at one point, and it was like when they're trying to, you can tell they're trying to be very experimental with it. And they had no real major recognizable characters, and he dies pretty badly. So I thought it was kind of funny. They threw him in there, like the way I didn't know who he was at the time, but after looking into it, like, oh, okay, so they really just cherry picked some really oddball random characters that die off. And the idea that the whole thing with Vanisher, that was like probably one of the best jokes of the movie, like, just because
Brad Pitt.
You don't see him at all, and you only see him for a split second right before he dies, and it's Brad Pitt.
I thought that was pure amazing. Like, I was like, that is so cool.
Plus, just the idea of, like, is he here? I don't know. And you see, like a parachute floating, like, among everybody. So, and when they're all coming down and making an X shape, they're just showing each individual character. And for Vanisher, you just see a parachute dropping down.
Yeah, I know that kind of worked well. And then I also like what was the regular guy, like Greg or Paul or
Peter.
I just like that. That was a perfect example of the joke. He's like, well, it's just there's a job there. It just sounded fun. So you know how it is. Because that's a perfect example of like, anytime when like you're flipping through like jobs looking for something, and you just see one, it's like, well, that looks different. I guess I'll just apply. What the hey?
I'll give it a shot. Why not? And I like how protective Deadpool is for him for no reason. He's just like, we gotta be men. We're gonna jump out of this, and we're X-Force. He leans in like, I'm sorry to yell at you. I just gotta look good for the other team. He has like a little bit of like sunscreen on his face. I never let anything happen to you, Sugar Bear. Like wipes that off his cheek. Like how he's just very protective of Peter for no real reason and just like loves him. He's just like, oh, Peter's dead. I'm gonna miss him the most.
Yeah, I know. It's like why he's so sad. It's just like he wasn't supposed to be here, really. You know what I mean? This wasn't a job for him. He had no superpowers or anything.
He's like, just walk away. Now, we'll just jump ahead for a second. Now, when they do the whole the whole time jumping thing at the very end, which is really funny, probably one of the best parts of the movie. Here's my question, because it says that he saves his girlfriend and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And stops a bunch of the other members from dying, and like saves Peter. He didn't. I don't think he saves everybody.
No,
he saves Peter. He just saves Peter. That's when he goes back to save. But when Vanessa, do you think she's actually dead, or do you think that was a funny little thing they did at the end, or do you think that's now canon? Like she'll be back in the next one now?
I don't know. I was kind of confused by that part too, because like I get it as far as a joke, and that's sometimes the hard part when you have something like Deadpool, where it can go back and forth between being serious and just being kind of like, Woody Allen fucking talking to the camera. You just kind of wonder, like, sometimes which Deadpool am I looking at? Am I looking at serious Deadpool, or am I looking at jokey Deadpool right now? And like, which one am I supposed to believe? And that's how I kind of felt there. I felt confused. Like, I wasn't too sure if that was the case. Like, I almost feel like if that is, like, and he kind of Deus Ex Machina'd it and went just back in time, and like if it's not really a joke and that's kind of serious, I almost kind of feel at the same time, I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, like that's a little bit, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of unnecessary. I mean, I know what they were going for. There's a couple jokes in there that I feel are like a little bit. There was one that I thought was a little bit much, and I feel like when he goes back and he shoots Ryan Reynolds in the head for doing Green Lantern. And I mean, I know that's like old school, like 1970s, the 90s, like fuck you, the other company. Back in the day, like especially the 90s was the worst section of all that, where you had to be on one side or the other. You couldn't choose. You either had to like Biggie or Tupac. You either had to like Marvel or DC. You had to like Arnold or Stallone. You know what I mean? Nintendo or Sega. You weren't allowed to like both things in the 90s. I don't know why that was so prevalent, but that's like what everything in the 90s was about telling the other guy to fuck himself. And so by that standard, like I get the joke in that way, but sometimes kind of one's like, well, I don't know, for anybody who's a hardcore DC fan, like, the Green Lantern movie's still pretty cool. I mean, it's not the best Green Lantern movie we could have got, but it's still fucking better than a lot of the Marvel Universe movies.
Right. Well, I don't know. I don't really like Green Lantern that much on myself, but
that's one of my favorite characters. That's probably like kind of like the difference is like I'm like, well, I'm gonna like it a little bit more than probably the average person does. That's what like one of the DC characters I like the most. But
it's not a god awful movie like people make it out to be. But
it's actually pretty good. It's like I think it's like. Yeah, it's like, if he was in space the whole time, that would have been perfect. But since that's not what the movie is, I think, like, and I take it kind of for what it is, it's still pretty darn good. And it still has quite a bit going on in it.
Maybe the director's cut's more interesting. My thing is just, it's a movie that could have done anything, but it just did the same old thing. It felt like it was just recycling, like, the plot to something like Spider-Man or any kind of, like, superhero movie from, like, the late 90s, early 2000s. But at the same time, and I think it was past the point where you could have been a little bit more experimental. It was after Dark Knight, and so I think you could have probably done a little bit more by that point. But whatever, it's not like a god awful movie that people make it out to be.
No, I still think it's like a 3 out of 4 movie. Like it's still pretty fucking good. Like if you just once again, if you just kind of accept it for what it is and not what it could have been, the movie almost like goes up in points, and you're like, you know what? It actually is pretty cool, you know what I mean? And there's nothing else really like it out there. And even though they were trying the Marvel, the kind of the Marvel Universe thing, it still, kind of worked in its own way. Like, I'd give DC real credit, and even Ryan Reynolds, if, like, when they did Justice League and they finally introduced Green Lantern, it just comes in, it's like, oh, yeah, it's just Ryan Reynolds. Here he is. He's been here this whole time.
Well, give him, like, a second chance at it, I get it. Well, Ryan Reynolds, he really doesn't even like, that movie. That's one reason why they keep on beating over the head, because he himself is not a fan of it. And I think that, like, even the thing with, like, Deadpool, like, when they first were trying to make Deadpool, like, he was so protective of that character because he always wanted to be Deadpool for a long time. And they said, all right, well, if you want to do Deadpool, you got to do X-Men Origins, and you got to do this version of him. And he was like, well, this isn't really how I envision Deadpool. Like, well, we're going to lead into it, so you got to do it this way. And then so he got his arm twisted into doing it like that. And then people say, well, you didn't do a good job as Deadpool. People didn't seem to like you. I was like, well, because you guys didn't let me be Deadpool. You guys did this thing over here. And then, that's for like, a number of years, I think like 5 or 6 years, he was trying to get the Deadpool movie off the ground. Back and forth. No, we're not making it. Then he just leaked out the test footage so people would demand it, saying, see, that's what they fucking want. Make this fucking movie.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I mean. It's like, I feel like the same way that he did Deadpool, like, why not do Green Lantern too? Just come back and just play the character again and just act like whatever. You know what I mean? Like, we can do this, you know what I mean? Like, we don't need to, like, reboot it or anything like that. We'll just do it, you know what I mean? Like, call it good.
Yeah, I mean, well, I like the whole thing they did, like, X-Men Origins, like, how you see him for a second from the X-Men Origins, and they even, like, cut back to Wolverine, like, looking kind of confused for a second. He's like, please don't scratch me.
Yeah.
I love you. And he just shoots him a couple more times and leaves.
He just keeps shooting him over, yeah. But
no,
yeah.
this movie... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, whatever you're going to say, go for it.
No, I was going to say, I think this movie... Something else about it was there was the kid. There was the kid in the movie, and when I saw the trailer, I'm like, don't fuck this up, kid. Don't fuck this up. But the kid, he's not by any means a favorite character. I don't really care about him that much. But he doesn't ruin the movie for me at all. He doesn't like make me go like, oh, this fucking kid's back on screen. Because you get where he's coming from, and he may not be the most likable guy, but he's also not the most hateable character either. Because, you see what the kid's coming from, what he's gone through, and how he's just at his wit's end, and he's never really had a friend, so you kind of understand why he's there.
Well, he's a shitty fat kid, but he's not like, I guess, an unlovable shitty fat kid. Like, you still kind of get like why he is who he is and so on. And I think that kind of like it works. It's one of those weird ones where it's like it's a very tight rope that you're walking, where if you could fall in the other way and just make this character super obnoxious and annoying, you're just like, no, fuck, hope that kid gets killed by Juggernaut.
It could have gone that way. And that's what I was worried about when I first saw the kid and the trailer, and because I knew that he wasn't going to be like, anytime I see a kid, like, we got to protect a kid, I'm like, fuck, all right. And I knew that it's going to be some kind of like Looper time traveler story, like he's a villain in that world. That's the only reason in the future. That's the only reason Cable could be after him. Which Josh Brolin did an amazing job as Cable. I mean, I know Cable is already just kind of like Clint Eastwood with a robot arm and cybernetic enhancements and all that. But fuck, he was a perfect Cable.
Oh yeah, dude, he was so dialed in. And because the thing is too is Cable is one of those characters I feel like easily, can be like, may not be like your all-time favorite, but you granted top 5 X-Men no matter what. Like, he really has taken over in like the last 30 years. He's really not that old of a character compared to everything else, but like, Cable always is so badass. Like, whenever Cable appears in anything, it's almost like, yeah, I gotta figure out what this is. You know what I mean? If Cable appears in the animated show, you know it's gonna be good. If he appears in a comic book, you know it's gonna be good. He's just one of those characters that's just totally, like, awesome. And super, he's like his 80s as fuck, and it's good that he can still come around, because there's always those people out there that are always like, characters like the Punisher and Judge Dredd and Cable do not relate to people nowadays. And it's like, fuck you, they don't. You know what I mean? Like, you know what? I hope the Punisher comes by and kills your fucking liberal ass. How about that? That's what I want to see, goddammit. Hopefully Judge Dredd puts you, in a holding cell for being a fucking pussy. But there's always those people out there
say that
like, I hear that every once in a while. It's like, are you fucking kidding? Like, they're like, yeah, that's why Punisher movies have never been that good. It's because they're just not relatable to, like, a modern audience. And it's like, fuck you. And they're like, he's two-dimensional. He's not fucking two-dimensional. Like, who the fuck says Punisher's two-dimensional?
I feel like all that shit comes in waves. I think Punisher came out during the whole... Because, he was inspired by Death Wish and those kind of movies at the time. So, that's where he was really popular. But at the exact same time, though, I think that all that shit comes in waves. And right now, even though I like a lot of current comics, we're at this weird time in comics where a lot of like mainstream comics are trying to have kind of a little bit more of an indie vibe. Even ones I really like this one is going back a couple of years, but Matt Fraction's Hawkeye. That really had kind of an indie comic vibe in both some of the humor as well as some of the artwork.
Yeah.
So I think
really
when you...
like it's that weird kind of art where it, 20 years ago, it would have never been up to par. The people at Marvel have been like, you got a fucking 5-year-old to draw this. I'm not saying that it's bad, but like you just look at it, and it's just like,
it's very simple.
You look and go, shit. You know what I mean? Like, it makes you kind of go, I can draw this and so on. But it looks cool at the same time. It's that weird kind of like shitty artwork that looks awesome. Like, and I like that stuff a lot.
And then you also have something like, then you go back to say something in the 90s. You got to try and sell something like that, or something that's really kind of quirky and independent, not independent, but quirky and offbeat, like Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. And then you contrast that with something like a issue of Cable or issue of X-Force from the 90s, where it's guys like gritting teeth, cigar, big fucking guns, 1,000 like vest pockets or whatever. And then people are like, yeah, it just doesn't relate to people. Like, we'll just give it time. There's going to be a time when people are going to look back at this time, whether you like these comics or not. They're going to look back. Remember when like comics or modern comics or like in mainstream comics are trying to be very indie and very kind of artsy?
Well, it's it's another one too, because this is what kind of somebody pointed out, and I didn't really think much of it because I used to think that like comic books kind of went to anybody, but they're like, oh well, a lot of comic book readers are very, very like liberal and very like anti like conservative and so on. I'm like, really? I'm like, I would have said it would have been drawn about straight down the middle. It sounds kind of weird, but a lot of times I always feel comic books because I've just known a lot of people my whole life that are like hardcore, like right wing, but they like superheroes and comic books a lot, and it's just kind of like that. And maybe that's also sort of where it is, because now you're getting those people, just those PC people, and the whole thing is like, yeah, like their anti-character is going to be Judge Dredd and the Punisher and Cable and anybody who's buff and threatening and manly and so on. And I think that's probably why those people like out there, because obviously people still love the Punisher and things like that. That's not going to change. There's just going to be these people now that are speaking out like that, think that these characters aren't like relatable and they're too 80s and they're too Reaganism and so on. And it's like, okay, like, well, fuck. Well, it's like, tell me what comic you like, and you know what? Like, fuck that comic.
Well, there was that period where Marvel was trying to be... It's kind of weird, because when Marvel and DC always seem to trade off, and there are times where one is better than the other, but I feel like they kind of... there's sometimes where it's like they're on par. They're both doing good, or they both have a couple of books that really stand out at the time. Mm-hmm. But I feel like as far as who's ever leading, it's always them trading off. And I think there is... DC did the New 52, and even though I thought there was some New 52 stuff that was really good, there's some stuff that was... They're trying to be more experimental, and they did this, they did that. And, like, they made, like, Starfire, like, less lovable, a little bit more of just, like, hungry for cock wherever she went. And then other aspects of just changing up the timeline. And then people like, well, Marvel, they get their audience. They got their finger on the pulse. And then as time went on, all these things about how strict DC is with their writers and their artists and how shitty they were treating them came out. And then Marvel's like, we're not doing that. We're so forward thinking and we're changing everything up and we're doing this and we're doing that. And as time went on, it slowly changed. And Marvel, I mean, even though I think some of these books are good, like I really like Kate Bishop as Hawkeye. I really like, I'm trying to blank on my Marvel stack right now, but there's some of that stuff that people are around that era. People were complaining about Marvel came out. I like Sam Wilson as Captain America. A lot of that shit got super, super PC and super by the numbers, and it showed. And it's not that all that was bad, but it definitely looked like they're trying to make a quota.
Well, and the one thing about Marvel, this is always, I feel like, sort of the difference between Marvel and DC. And DC will do it every once in a while, where I feel like they get kind of like, oh, we gotta try something. But Marvel, like, does it consecutively. And you can just pick any decade and you'll see what they do. And they kind of try to go with whatever the pop culture, like, is at the moment. And that's kind of like the genre they pick. Where DC almost has a little bit more of a classic feel to it. Like, they kind of, for the most part, they're like, we're gonna stick to our guns and kind of go on. Every once in a while, they get something like New 52, where like, well, let's try a couple different things here. We'll make Starfire different. We'll make Green, that Arrow show seems to be popular. Make him kind of more like that Arrow character and so on. Don't make him classic. It'll look like somebody's grandpappy. You know what I mean? Like, so every once in a while they'll do that, but then they'll kind of like fucking back up. They'll like backpedal on it and be like, okay, we're going to do Rebirth and they're kind of back to normal again. You know what I mean?
Well, that right there, a lot of people like DC right now, and Marvel is. I'm sure Marvel has their people that are always going to love Marvel no matter what they do. But then they're also, I mean, I'm friends with a guy who runs a comic book shop down the road from me, and I'll bullshit with him all the time. And he loves them both because right now Marvel is doing this. They're trying to be. There's that period where they're trying to be too PC, and it's not that you can't have like. Can't change the ethnicity of a character. It's not that you can't mix that up every so often. It's more of like they did it with all their major characters all at once, and it really shows. And even though some of those books may be good, when you do it all like that, it shows, and it's almost kind of like, here's what you like now. Like, oh, wait, what? I mean, you gotta just kind of work into it. You just don't drop this on your fucking lap like, here it is. You gotta kind of work into it, and when you flip a switch like that, it's noticeable.
And those are always those kind of things I feel like that's when like companies do the thing where it's like, okay, here's your core audience that has been with you since day one, and you have just dropped them off the ship. That's always what that is, because you want to get a brand new audience, so you said, fuck the original audience, let's try to get this new audience, and that's never a good thing. I feel like you never want to fuck over your core audience. Your core audience is the one you want to kind of like appeal to the most. Not saying you can't try to grab other people here and there, but you don't want to just drop them off on like the fucking curb just to go pick up somebody else and then like come back like fucking like, 2 days later be like, yeah, sorry about that. I thought they were going to be way cooler than you, but I guess they just kind of used me for like, a day and that was it. So you guys want to come back in? Captain America's back. He's got freedom back in him.
Yeah, well, it's also one of those things where, I mean, I always feel like Marvel has always been very liberal and very left-leaning, but at the exact same time, though, I feel like it's almost more of a, like DC, the way I feel like it, here's how I think about the two, the biggest difference between the two. DC takes place in a world that's built upon science fiction and gods, where Marvel is our world reacting to that.
Yeah, with superheroes involved.
I feel like that DC makes sense of how they're superheroes, where Marvel is like, wait, how these superheroes get here, and how would we react to it? That's how I feel the biggest difference between the two. And it depends on who's writing. Both these companies have been around for 80 years, so it depends on who's writing. But at the same time, that's usually the vibe I get from one to the other. Yeah. I mean, the movies that the current DC movies are like, can you believe these meta-humans? Where like, in the comics, like, oh yeah, we had this super team of like, we had this super, well, I mean, I guess if you look back, Marvel did it too with Captain America. They had like a super team back then, but they were all like hush-hush about it, and they kind of retconned it a little bit. But DC seems a lot more forward with like, oh yeah, superheroes have always been here since the 40s, and since then,
Well, this is another one too. Like that's why, just because you said this, like, okay, the word metahuman. Like, I feel like I never really saw that in comic books till just recently. It feels like Flash and Arrow were the ones to make that word really popular in DC. Because I was to say, like, any old DC book I've ever read, like, they almost never use that term to describe somebody. You know what I mean? And it's just like, now it's just like that's like the throw line for everything. It's like metahuman. They almost use it like it's like, we want to say mutant, but we're gonna say metahuman instead.
We have it in one of our cartoons before they even made Flash or Arrow.
Does it say it in there? Because I'm not saying that they don't say it, but they toss that term around just like so often nowadays that it's like, I just felt like you'd hear it once in a blue moon, but like it was not really like it wasn't the main term you would use to describe superheroes, I guess.
They do use it a lot more because of that show, I think, but at the exact same time, I can think back to Under the Red Hood, the movie. I mean, there's probably plenty of comics. If I fish them out, I could find it. But I remember the Red Hood, the movie, when they fight a Mazo, like, what's he do? Like, he copies the abilities of metahumans. And that was before Flash or Green Arrow show, so. Yeah,
but that's still pretty recent, though. I'm talking about, like, anything in about, like, in, like, the last beyond 10 years.
Probably as late back as early 2000s is probably when they start using it a lot more heavily.
Yeah, it's just one of those ones like an old Batman. And when I say old Batman comics, I mean things from like 2000s, 90s, 80s, and so on. You just don't hear that term. That was the only thing. It's just like it just started to appear You know, I mean, gradually, but now it's just tossed around like left and right. It's like, oh, okay, it's not a bad term. It just seems kind of weird. It's just like all of a sudden, it's like, oh, this is what we're calling them now. It's almost like if you change like in X-Men, you're like, we're not calling them mutants anymore. We're gonna start phasing in a brand new word.
Well, that was another thing. Like, going back to Marvel for a minute, they were trying so... Like, Marvel almost got too comfortable and thought they were... Everyone loves us. We can do whatever the fuck they want. Whatever the fuck we want. So that's why they kind of started switching out a lot of their characters. And I'll say there's... What was it? They were really trying to push Inhumans on people. They're like, well, we're not going to get the X-Men. So what we're going to do? We're going to get people with the Inhumans. Mm-hmm. You're going to get people with the Inhumans? Yeah, man. We're going to get them with the Inhumans. You mean the not X-Men to live on the moon? Fuck yeah! What do you know about them? Like, well, I know one guy.
I know they kind of
breaks shit if he. I know one guy breaks shit if he talks. He has a big dog, and there's a lady with red hair. It's really long. That's all I really know. Do you want to know more? No, not really. I never really gave a fuck about them. And they're like, they're making a movie. These guys will be big. They're gonna be big. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make a fucking movie with the Inhumans. And then they're like, fuck. We don't know, actually, what we're gonna fucking do with them. It's hard to figure this shit out. So, I got an idea. Let's make an ABC show. And that show is, like, canceled in 2 episodes.
Well, it's one of those, like, granted, probably if you read the Inhumans, there's probably a bunch of cool stuff in there. I'm not saying anything against it, but the thing that Marvel, like, they did is they just, like, totally cock-blocked, like, everything X-Men, where, like, the X-Men aren't allowed to be advertised. They're not allowed to have action figures. They're not allowed to be, like, have a TV show or a cartoon show or anything like that necessarily. I mean, I know it's kind of changed just recently, but for there was, like, almost, like, maybe not 10 years, but, like, quite a long time period where, like, the X-Men were just not, they were just trying to, like, hide the X-Men as much as possible, which just sounds just so retarded. You're going to hide, like, literally, like, one of the biggest Marvel companies. You know, the 3 biggest Marvel things generally is like the Avengers, Spider-Man, and the X-Men. You know, at the end of the day, and sometimes X-Men's mostly outbeat a lot of them many a time. So you're going to kind of hide them. Like, well, we still got the comic books. We're just not going to really advertise them. They'll be like the 10th roster and so on. Hell, they even pulled all the X-Men characters out of Marvel vs. Capcom 4, and it was like, yep. I mean, the only upside of that, I guess, is like this is my optimistic way of looking at that.
No Wolverine, or
that's an X-Men
3?
character. Yeah, no X-Men characters. But this is my only optimistic way of looking at that. I'm like, well, there might be some more Avengers characters that you would normally never get in there, or, you know, other characters. Like, maybe you'll get, like, Star-Lord. I'm not too sure if he's in there. I'm just making this up. But maybe you'll get characters like that just because somebody's got to replace, you know, your half roster of Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's so weird because before you play a Marvel vs. Capcom game, like most of the characters, most guys on the Marvel side, like, almost 50% to 75% are X-Men characters. Now it's like, not fucking one.
Well, you know what's the sad part about that, too, is the X-Men is the original game of that entire series. It's X-Men Children of the Atom is the very, very, very first game of that, like, play style. And from that point on, you know, it went to X-Men versus Street Fighter and Marvel versus Capcom and so on. But the fact that it's like, you're going to get rid of literally your original batch of characters just because you got a grudge against Fox, and that's, like, the only reason why, it's like, that's goofy.
Yeah, you know, it's business. It's that mouse runs shit the way he always fucking runs.
Those mutants.
They're gonna fucking pay. I don't give a shit if it's I don't give a shit if it's a fucking allegory for racism back in the 60s. I don't give a fuck. Dirty fucking mutants. Hit them all the fucking street. Mickey, shut the fuck up.
Fucking mutant. See, you can't be racist against fat people anymore. You can't be against the gays, but you can always be against the fucking mutants. There's always someone you can fucking put down. That's why I'm putting down right now.
Give me some more fucking cocaine.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those ones, like, that seems like what it's kind of going after. It's just like, it's just kind of a bummer. It's just like, it'd be nice to have like a new X-Men video game or something like that too. You know, because X-Men Legends was fucking awesome. And then, Yep, that's it. You know, it's just such a bummer. And that's I think that's the one thing. It's like, whenever people get like, no, I think one company should have a monopoly and life will be better. It's like, are you fucking retarded? Like, didn't you ever play fucking Monopoly? The whole point of that game is fuck the guy who wins. You know what I mean? Because you just know he's the biggest asshole out of your friends.
Yeah, pretty much. But no, the whole thing, I like how that was actually made. Like, all right, we're gonna I want to make this game to show why monopolies are in like, you know,
inhuman
economic espionage is wrong, And then all of a sudden, it's just like, dude, this game's fucking fun. No, you're not. You're missing the point. I want to show kids why it's bad. Dude, you stole all my shit. Yeah, it's so much fun, isn't it? Yeah.
Go
like,
hand over
fuck.
those hotels, you little fuck.
Time to go out in the street and start sucking cock for money.
I'll get it one way or the other. It was like literally just teaching like ultra capitalist ideas to children.
Pretty much. It was made to show them the dark side of it, but made kids like it even more. We have a whole like generation of people going to Wall Street because of that game.
It really is, and it's just funny how people just like, and it's not actually Wall Street's technically not like the worst part of it. That has nothing to really do necessarily with a monopoly, but like it's the fact that people are so okay with one company fucking like owning like so much, and I don't understand like. What do you mean? Like, that's like the worst thing you possibly have. Like, it's never, that's the worst for like a consumer is for one company to own it all. Because then they can make all the decisions and they don't have to worry, but there's no competition for them.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to, here's the thing. I think that Disney can do some interesting things with, I think that's kind of shitty things to do to try and get rid of the X-Men to, you know, it's so weird when I hear people get mad at Fox about like, yeah, if only they do this, then they would start showing X-Men, they started making Fantastic Four comics again because they apparently canceled Fantastic Four.
Did they really?
Until Fox, for a while. I don't know if they have, if it still is. But they canceled Fantastic Four comics for a while because Fox had it. And the characters would pop in other people's books though. And it was one of those things like, yeah, Fox being a bunch of greedy bastards can't give it back. Like, it sounds like Disney's, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's some kind of middle ground they could probably make, but I mean, really, I mean, they're the ones choosing to not make these fucking things anymore. And I don't think it was really the Fantastic Four movies that were keeping that shit afloat. So, you know.
Well, it's also one of the ones, too. It's like when people use that term, like, oh, Fox wasn't so greedy. It's like, no, they're not greedy. They're holding on to something that they, you know, bought the rights for in the 90s. Like, granted, they can kind of do what they want because they have bought these rights. And it's probably best that these things are sort of split up anyways. I mean, I'll even say this, like, you know, if DC even got slightly split up from like Warner Brothers, I mean, it would be kind of weird, but like it wouldn't be the worst thing because the upside is you get two different like takes on like something going on. You know what I mean? Like I almost wish this is like how I would like to see movies almost be made. Like even like let's just say even Disney. Let's say Disney can make the Avengers Marvel Universe movies, okay? They can do that. But somebody else, let's just say Sony can come in and they can make a Spider-Man movie any which way they want. So they can make a very ballsy Spider-Man movie that Disney might never make. And it almost would be a separate Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you got Avengers Spider-Man, but then you also have Sony Spider-Man, if that makes any sense. And then, you know, I could even see that with like DC. Like, okay, let's say Warner Brothers makes like, you know, the Justice League movies like we're seeing right now. But then let's say Lionsgate comes along and they're like, okay, we just want to make a standalone Batman movie that, you know, is going to go off like, you know, like Long Halloween or something like that. And that's what they're going to make. You know what I mean? It's just a one-shot movie. I think that'd be kind of cool if like people could just license out a movie just for like a one-shotters. You know what I mean? Because that's what I kind of miss is the one-shot movie. And Marvel's really like, they're the ones why them and like, you know, things like Game of Thrones and so on have like really like made people like always want these continual stories. Or like Walking Dead's another perfect example of like, it's like, you know what was a good thing back in the old days was the one-shotters. That was like almost kind of nice. There's something to be said about like not having to like know this, you know, whole history behind something. You could just jump on in and you just start on off. You don't need your origin stories. You don't need your like last time, you know, here's like what was going down. Just like, no, let's just like have singular episodes or singular movies. You know what I mean?
I wish the Dragon Ball Z announcer would just do like more random things like last time on Game of Thrones.
Exactly. You could probably make a job just by doing like parody videos on YouTube of that.
Or just like last time on Desperate Housewives.
You know, and it's like, well, I mean, I guess you could probably say if you go even farther back, anime is also another like bad like section of like continual stuff because some things just go on forever and ever. But mostly anime a lot of times will even like not like reset itself, but it will kind of like go like here's an arc and then it goes to like another storyline and here's an arc and then it goes to another storyline where like, you know, if you look at something like I mean something like Arrow, if you look at like season 6 and you just go like the last time on Arrow, it's like if you had no idea if this was the first episode of Arrow you ever watched, you'd be like, this is the most confusing fucking show I've ever seen. I have no idea what's going on. You know what I mean? Especially if you had no real prior knowledge of these characters. It's just like I miss the days of like being able, like, you know what, like you always go with Batman the animated series. I know that's always like the go-to one, but it's like you could throw one. It doesn't matter. You could take any episode and put it on random between seasons 1 through 4 and just hit play, and you would know what was going on. You know what I mean? Even if it came up as, season 4, like, episode 6, you wouldn't be like, oh, I'm so lost. I need to watch seasons 1, 2, and 3 now so I know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's one of those things. I think we'll get back to that at some point. I think people are like, because, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think, what was it? Breaking Bad ended, what was it, season 5 or 6? Because you had to watch so many episodes of it, and they wanted to end thing on a high note. I mean, I can imagine how that thing went on forever, how many more seasons. Like, okay, so this guy betrayed him, but then they did a drug deal with him. Now they're cool with him, but then he accidentally got his son killed or whatever, and this happened and that happened. So it's one of those things where I think after a while it would just be too much to keep up with. And I think after, when Game of Thrones and Walking Dead is done, I think after that, maybe we'll still have continual shows, but I think people are going to go back to more simplified, like something like it's always, I know it's easier to do with comedy. Mm-hmm. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia or something like that, where it's okay, there's no real major stakes, so it's not a big deal if you miss this episode. It's just like, this is just kind of a one and done just for this episode. But I think it's when you got a more serious story, that's where they all want to connect everything. And I get that, because there are a lot of shows that do that I like. But I think they're all starting to break that trend with something like Black Mirror, which is an anthology show. You can literally just throw on any episode. I'm like, oh, cool.
Well, and I think, too, this is the reason why. I mean, sitcoms have always done that. And that almost seems kind of weird if a sitcom was, very, South Park obviously did it in, some of their last seasons. But then they even said that was kind of stupid and they're going to go back to normal style. So that's kind of nice to hear there. But I think it's because, in the 90s and pretty much pre-DVR and, being able to stream things, that was the reason why it was, very hard you didn't want to do a continual show, because if you missed an episode, perfect examples, anime shows, you missed an episode, you, hated yourself for a week because you knew you'd never fucking see it anytime soon unless somebody taped it for you or something like that. So, I mean, I understand, nowadays it feels like, well, we can do continual shows because people can just start at the very beginning and it's not, a big deal. But there is something to be said about, and even movies, it's I remember the days when 007s used to be just standalone movies, because once the Daniel Craig ones started coming out, they started making them semi-continual. I mean, they weren't nearly as you had, if you didn't see Quantum of Solace, you're gonna be so fucking confused right now. But but they started doing it where it was a little bit more continual instead of just being kind of like a standalone with maybe just a couple things that maybe passed on over. I like one and done stuff. Maybe that's just you get kind of older and it's because probably if you would have asked me at 10 years old, I would have been yeah, continual stuff is so cool. It would be just like anime everywhere. And that's what 10-year-old me would have thought would have been awesome. It's the storylines are so interconnected and big. But as I get older, it's no, I like just one and done stuff. It's even the comic books. I wish even Batman and all those ones, because DC now started to fall into the DC or the Marvel trap where they start doing everything continual. It's I wish you guys would just go back to doing things remember the good old days when you did Batman, Dark Victory, and it's just a one and done story, or Hush, you know what I mean? It wasn't like last time on Batman and so on, let's just keep stacking these on these. I mean, I know that at every 6 or 8 issues or so, a lot of times it kind of flip-flops to a new arc, but you know what I mean? Just a straight up, I like just a solid, here's a solid 6 issues, solid 10 episodes, or even just singular episodes, a one movie. It's just that's all it is. It's just, there's that storyline, and after that, we'll do something completely different.
Yeah. No, I think that we'll get there eventually. I don't know. I think that maybe not even get there eventually.
Honestly, I don't know.
I think it's already happening
because I feel like it's almost like an old way of telling stories. Not saying that people won't do it, but I just feel like it's not going to be the norm, or it's not going to be common, probably even ever again. I feel like it's not going to be people are going to continuously do these continual things for quite a long time. I think just because before in the olden days, it was just because it was hard to catch up if you didn't, you know what I mean? Or almost close to impossible to catch up if you didn't have, copies or something like that, or somebody didn't tape it for you.
What I was going to say was, I said I think we'll get there again. I'm not sure if we will. I think it's just going to be 2 different types of ways you prefer it. You and me, I can kind of go either way with it. Mm-hmm. I guess I prefer more one and done stories, but depending on what the kind of story it is, I'm fine if it's long and continual. It all varies. But I think that, I think it's one of those things where we will have more series that kind of are just one and dones again, because even something like Black Mirror, that's that's one of the most popular things on Netflix right now, and that's an anthology story. And, you know, one of my favorite shows is Cowboy Bebop, so it already kind of shows why I kind of prefer those kind of just simplified stories that have little hints that kind of build up to something bigger at the end. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I think it's not like one's going away and the other's taking its place. I just think it's going to be, you know, it all comes in waves. I think that the main reason why comics have reboots so frequently is because they just build up too much history, so they they have to come up with some crazy event to hit the reset button. And I think that eventually shows and storytellers are going to pick up on that and try to make something a little bit more simplified for people just to hop on.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those ones that it's like, it's a maybe. I don't feel like it's something that's going to be like, oh, it's going to be a phase and it's just going to kind of come back. I actually really don't see it like that. I feel like it's because of technology has made it so that they can, you don't need to always just do the one and dones, because one and dones were almost made specifically for the fact that you weren't sure if somebody saw the first one. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, I get you. Yeah.
So I get. Yeah, it's one of those ones. I just don't think it's gonna be. Not say people won't make them. Every once in a while, somebody's gonna make them. You know what I mean, like that. But I just don't think it's like the common one. It'd be like if you went to DC right now or Warner Brothers and said like trying to pitch them a one and done Batman story. I don't know if they would want that. You know what I mean? They're like, well, it's not the Marvel continual format, so we don't know if it'll sell nearly as well. It's just like, can't we just do one? Jonah Hex was a one and done. Yeah, did you see what happened there? Like that's not the point though. Just saying.
Jonah Hex is probably not the best example to go to for anything, really.
I know, but I like that movie probably more than the average person, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Well, I'm sure that, I mean, we always have the ones that are there. And if not, I mean, you know, we're both creating our own things. They're a little bit of like, you know, not too much history or too many complicated backstories to make it happen, to make people go back too often. So just a matter of preference, and people really like, you know, their continual stories right now. So
I think
that's all there is to it.
I think it's also due to the fact that a lot of people just have this like free time just to like dick around, where it's like, for me, it's like those ones like I want mine like, I want it lined up. I want it perfectly edited down. I want my story to be perfect. You know what I mean? Don't give me any of this filler crap. But I think the average person just doesn't see filler. Because sometimes, like, I always bring that up when people tell me, like, how much they're like, oh, Breaking Bad's like the most perfect show. I'm like, it'd be perfect if it didn't have the filler in it. Like when it's great, it's great. But when it has the filler in it, it kind of brings it down. They're like, oh, I didn't really even notice that. I'm like, are you fucking retarded? Like, come on, dude. Like, what's going on here?
No, I get you. I feel like it's one of those things that, yeah, I don't know. I kind of said all I can really say on it.
I know, it's one of those weird ones. It's like, yeah, it'd be nice just to kind of see. I mean, here's the thing. You know, like something like Deadpool, that's a perfect example of like Deadpool 2. Like, yeah, I mean, if you saw the first one, it'd be nice, but you literally could probably jump into Deadpool 2 and not have to worry too much about what was going on. Like, if you jumped into the Avengers, you know, Infinity War, and you never saw a single one before this, it might be kind of weird and confusing. But Deadpool, not so much.
Yeah, Deadpool is pretty easy to jump into. It does have continuations from things from the last one, but it's easy to... I saw it with some friends who, one of them didn't see the first one, and he had no problem figuring out what was going on. He's like, oh, I get it, superheroes, okay, that guy's funny, okay. And there's like once or twice I had to lean in, like, and I wasn't that guy talking throughout the movie, but there's like one or two jokes I had to lean in. Like, there's a part when he's like, who could think of a dumbass fucking superhero power about somebody who has luck? I bet whoever did it can't draw feet. And I'm pretty sure they're referencing Rob Liefeld, because Domino, I think, came from the 90s, and Rob Liefeld was a big artist in the 90s who had trouble drawing feet. So I think it was Rob Liefeld, or there's one of those guys from Image who had weird anatomy skills.
Yeah, it might be. I was assuming that was geared at somebody like that. I didn't know exactly who it was, but one of those kind of like things. But yeah, like Domino in that one, she was done really well. Like, I do kind of wish that like her eye thing was a little bit more white instead of looking like it kind of like sort of like faded off after 3 days. But other than that, though, like I still thought that character was done kind of well. Even though she's being different and almost like changing it around a bit, it still like works. You know, yeah, Juggernaut. I do kind of wish the one that I thought was kind of weird though is like, what's her name? The girl, the Supersonic.
Supersonic, the Teenage Warhead.
Yeah, I wish she was in it a little bit more. She's just kind of had like brief cameos. I thought she was almost going to be more like part of the team. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh no, she's kind of off doing her own thing. It's just like it would have been kind of cool if she was in it just a tad bit more.
Yeah, she was just kind of there for a minute. I did like the little like dynamic he had with like Yukio. Like every time, like just this adorable little Japanese girl, like hi Wei, like hi Yukio. Like he just didn't even know her, but just got along with her so well. Kind of like the whole Peter dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. Like literally probably couldn't tell you anything about her, but for some reason it was just fun saying hello to her, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And like, but Domino was probably one of the. I'm surprised I haven't seen like a bunch of fucking like alt right or like super like men's rights groups pushing against Domino. Like she is too overpowered. She's just lucky, and she's an ethnicity. I'm surprised I haven't seen more of that shit. Because usually that's the kind of weird thing.
Because I remember when I first saw that, because I didn't even know that was Domino like until like way like later on, like the second time I watched the trailer. It's like, oh, that's Domino. It's like because it just doesn't look like Domino at first. I thought it was a completely different character, and it's like I'm like that's one of those ones where it's like. I will say it's not like super, you know what I mean? That's one of those few that can work. It's like, because Domino already has dark hair, so she's not white. You know what I mean? You know that she's that. So it's just more like, I think you just turn the darkness level up a little bit more. That sounds so weird to say it like that. Mm-hmm. But you know what I mean? It's like you go from being like Italian to being black. You know what I mean? That's not that big of a jump. I think if she was like a blonde haired character, then that's where people would have freaked out probably.
Well, Domino's not even. Is she Italian? Because I thought she was like light blue skinned with black hair. I thought she was not even like.
I didn't say she was Italian. I just said that she was in like she was. You could.
Comparing.
You could tell that she's not. Okay. She's not white. Let's just say that.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably the reason why it wasn't that big of a change. It's almost like kind of having like a character that has like sort of like, you know, he's got, you know, light brown hair and now he sort of has blonde hair. Like nobody's going to really like jump the gun on that one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm not trying to stir up controversy. I'm just one of those.
You just kind of expect it nowadays because there's just going to be all those like you just expect those old school fans just to kind of jump on out and be like, oh, see, they just don't even want us to have our Italian characters anymore. It's like she's not Italian. Why do you keep bringing that up? It's like everybody's Italian. That's what you draw when you're drawing superheroes. Haven't you ever realized that? Yeah. Everybody's Italian. You know what I mean? They're Italian or they're Jewish because they're all in New York.
A Jewish guy with a very thick jaw.
Yeah, like you know Superman.
Yeah. Well, you know, all the creators were always Jewish, so it makes sense if they look Jewish.
I always personally prefer my Superman to look more Jewish. I want him to look kind of like a strong, buff version of Jerry Seinfeld. Like that's like, and every once in a while you'll get those Superman comics like, hell yeah, I love when he just looks as Jewish as can be, because that's what I picture Superman. I picture him almost being space Jewish. You know what I mean?
That's how Neil Adams kind of draws him.
Yeah, like and like I like that kind of look. I mean, if not, he looks Italian because that's what everybody looks Italian. Like Dick Grayson looks Italian. Like none of those characters are like white really. At the end of the day, you know what I mean? They all got this like the darkest black hair known to mankind, and so on.
Dick Grayson in the 90s looks like when he was like, you know, when he was Man Wing, he has super hair. All he needs is like a
Stanley hair.
All he needs is like a gold chain and like a white button-up shirt with like the top couple of buttons unbuttoned. You'd be like, oh, like very Andrew Dice Clay.
Well, I don't know if it's one of those ones, if maybe that's how they were designing characters back in the day, but I always feel like when you design a character in sort of like an Italian look, or something similar like that, it's almost like that's the most bare in the dead center that you can be, that kind of almost is relatable to anybody, because they're not white, they're not black, but they can relate to both black, whites, Asians, and so on, and just kind of like they're Italian. It's like I feel like Italians. I mean, look at Italy's in the fucking center of the map practically. You know what I mean? Like shit, like it's about the most center of the world that you could get. So if you just design, that's why I always felt like the characters in like Grand Theft Auto, like why he was originally Italian, because it's just like, well, Italian's kind of like, you know what I mean? It's like anybody can relate to an Italian. You know, everybody likes Italian to somewhat. Either you like pizza, either you like The Godfather. You know what I mean? You like Italian music. One of those things.
Well, yeah.
But
yeah. But I thought that but I was just saying that I'm surprised that, not that I haven't gone looking for it either. I'm just surprised I haven't heard more backlash regarding that, about them changing that or making the character that strong. Because you get some people get all touchy, like, oh, why is the girl character so much smarter and stronger than the guy character? You hear that, not all the time, but once in a while. You know, you hear that a lot with like the new Star Wars movies or whatever. But
the only time I ever thought that was a
no.
problem was like is sort of like I use like Black Widow as an example. Is like it was really only like in that first Avengers movie they made her out like she was so much more badass than all these characters that have been doing it like way longer, and characters that have superpowers and characters that have that. It's like, okay, you pull the brakes back when you got a character that's not doesn't have like that. Like, see, Domino makes sense. It's like the whole point of her thing is she has. It's like the most weirdest like X-Men power you can imagine, but it's like she has the luck so that like everything's gonna happen in her favor. There's also another character. It's I think Longshot in the X-Men. I want to say that's his name. He has a similar one like that too, where like things just kind of happen for him in that lucky sort of sense, and he's kind of like one of those like Mojo World characters. You know, I'm not too sure if he's from Mojo World or something, but he takes place a lot of times in there.
If I remember correctly, I think Domino. I might be wrong here because she only pops. I never really read a lot of X-Men, but I remember her popping up in a couple of Deadpools I read and other Marvel books. I think it's one of those things she could only divvy her luck up in a couple places at once. So, for instance, when she says, Mother Luck, take the wheel, and she just leaves the car to drive by itself as she goes to fight Cable, like she leaves herself vulnerable for that. Because all her look is focused on the car driving right there.
Yeah, like she's not like not everything's gonna be like in her favor because it's still luck, so there's still chances. It's just she has like high, almost like she has like a 90% chance that everything's gonna work out for her, but there's still that 10% chance that it might not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she was like, plus she was just, aside from her powers, she was just a really likable character. She was quick-witted, she was funny, and in a different way than Deadpool. Like, not so much in the way of like, he'll like, there's the part when he's doing the Say Anything, where he's holding up the phone with has the boombox cover over it. He's playing Peter Gabriel. He says like, "I'm sorry, I treated your friendship like a glory hole in a Michigan bath in a Michigan airport." Like, you know the one, like that kind of like that kind of really dragged out like improv humor. Mm-hmm. She's more of just a couple like quick-witted little lines here and there. Like they also do things like they were like, okay, last one there's a part of the creepy little baby hands. This one, let's do a Basic Instinct homage and give him like a weird little baby dick.
I also just like the part too where like Deadpool's buddy's like he's dick shirting it. Or whatever he said.
Straight cocking it.
Oh yeah,
full-blown Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, he's shirt cocking it. That's what it was. I love that phrase. I'm like, that phrase is awesome. I've never heard that one before, but that's great. Shirt cocking it.
Just like Winnie the Pooh.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is what I think is kind of smart is that, you know, okay, Deadpool's funny, but everybody else isn't really like over the top funny. Like, you know, Cable's serious, but he can still do like a serious joke. You know what I mean? Like kind of the same way that Colossus is as well too. And I think that's almost like kind of works. Because if everybody was funny, and I almost feel like that's sort of like maybe like a kind of a slight complaint to maybe Guardians, is they try to make everybody the funny character when maybe like a little bit less of them should be. You know what I mean? Like let Rocket be funny, you know? Let Drax be funny, but maybe not everybody needs to be funny. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they definitely I think Cable's a good straight-laced guy. And all his humor is more of him just kind of rolling his eyes or reacting to something. There's the part where where like Deadpool will almost just use like he almost takes like the super politically correct side, not because he believes in it, but just to piss someone off. Like there's the part where Cable's like, he's reaching like, hey, can you turn down the music? Like, you will do no such thing. This is like, would you be asking him that if his pigment was a different color? Like, what? No. It's just like, shh, I'm sorry. Racism rears his ugly head again. He like strokes Dopender's face, looking back at Cable. Like, you should judge the merit of someone's heart, not their skin. Like, he's just like stroking his face. And he's like, I'm not a racist. I just don't want to listen to music right now. I'm like, sure.
That's also like, there's that one guy. It's when they're in the mutant prison or whatever and stuff like that. And when the guy introduced, I forgot what his name is, but he's like,
oh, Black. I think his name is Black William or something.
Yeah, he's like, my name's Black William, and he's like, I'm white. Fucking Deadpool's name.
I'm White Wade.
Yeah, I'm White Wade. like that was like the title. And then like when like Cable kills him, he's like, you killed a black man. Like, you racist.
He was my friend. He kept on getting his name wrong every time. Like, he's like, you killed Black Phillip. You killed Black Tom. Like, every time he was like a brother to me. Like, says his name
like the most
time.
asshole guy in prison. I just thought that was just kind of funny. Just kind of brings it back. See, and that's like a funny way of doing something like a joke like that.
Oh, when the guy stabs his hand, like, oh no, when the guy's like starting shit and they start beating up the fuck out of the kid, he's like, hey guys, we get a mop up on this table over here. Like, he's not like, even doing anything to save the kid. He's more like, whatever, it's time to wait this shit out.
Because it's like he's got no superpowers, so now he's just getting cancer.
Mm-hmm. No, but that whole part, like, I mean, his dynamic with the kid in there, he's even not even too overly loving, but at the same time, there's like enough there to make him be kind of like, I thought it was kind of funny. Well, it's actually, it starts off with a funny line, but then it follows up with a line that's actually meaningful, I think.
Yeah.
He says, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to in here and die of cancer. I'm going to get the award for most amount of cancer. You're going to get the award for softest mouth. And he goes on to say, like, well, what do you suggest you do? Like, well, I suggest you be friends with somebody. Anybody but me. Just make a friend. And then, like, that line right there, that's like one of the few lines that's like one of the few moments in the movie. No, there's not that there's. I'm gonna say there's probably maybe 3 or 4 moments in this movie that really have like a real emotional scene to kind of let it linger there for a minute.
And that's what I like about it. There is actually quite a bit of that in that movie. It's like, though it's a comedy, it's not like I'll say it's once again, it's not like Guardians of the Galaxy or Thor 3 where it goes over the top, like almost like too ridiculous. It almost knows its boundaries between being like, here's our funny parts, but we're also gonna be real serious too. It almost feels like it takes the material still serious, but there's comedy involved. You know, where I felt like Thor 3 wasn't taking the material really that serious. At the end of the day, it was kind of almost it was almost like a parody of itself.
Yeah, I kind of got that vibe too. And, I mean, I guess you can kind of say it does that with certain X-Men characters in this, but at the same time, the X-Men characters that they kill off aren't that well known and weren't characters most people were probably asking for in the first place. But you might get the 1 or 2 people like, no, man, my favorite character has always been Vanisher, or my favorite character has always been Zeitgeist. So when they fucking go out like nothing, like, oh.
Well, yeah, but there's going to be somebody who that's going to kind of affect. I mean, at the same time, it's not like you put in like, oh, there's Gambit. Oh, Gambit's fucking dead. You know what I mean? It's not like something like that. You know what I mean? But
I like how they did have the whole bit about because back in the 90s their characters were known for having too many like pocket pouches and all that, and whenever Cable would go to retrieve something from his, I'm getting something from my utility belt, it's a fanny pack, you sick son of a bitch.
It's like a futuristic like fanny pack with like about a bunch of pockets and so on there. Such a weird like concept. Like there was a time it's like trying to explain that to somebody, like there was a time period where it was really cool to draw a lot of pockets.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It was just something like that. Like they just have like this belt going across their chest with all these like things. Like Deadpool had a lot of those at one point in time.
Yeah, well, I think it was just like maybe it was trying to one up Batman. Like, oh yeah, Batman's got a utility belt. Well, guess what? I'm gonna have dual utility belts going across my chest and back, and so on. It was just like, I don't know. It's just like they went like the distance on it. But it just sounds funny. Just explain that to a kid in the future. Just be like, there was a time period where people like to draw a lot of pockets, and then just ended at that. Let him think about that. Don't explain it anymore.
Well, there's even like small thing where he's going for something. I'm retrieving something from utility belt. Like, it's a fanny pack, you sick son of a bitch. And then as he's talking to Deadpool, he's like, you remind me of my wife. He's like, what? And he's just like, she was always good at like channeling all her anger through humor and this and that, but I can never really get that down. He's like applying like lip gloss or something. He says like, yeah, that would have meant a lot, but if you were making hard eye contact and applying lip balm when you're saying it.
You lip gloss. But yeah, I know exactly. That's, I mean, there's a lot of like nice little lines in there, but like stuff that never takes away. The story's still taken serious. Like overall, it's just like I was just really impressed with Deadpool 2. Like way more than I thought I would like. I mean, I knew I was gonna really like it. I wasn't expecting not to, but like it was like even better than like I almost even like anticipated.
Yeah, I really dug this one. This is definitely a get when it comes out on Blu-ray for me.
Yeah, it's like one of those ones, like, if these X-Men movies would continue in this form, like, after Logan and Deadpool 2, it's just like, why not just keep them going like this? Like, I think, almost at the end of the day, it's just for, like, just do rated R X-Men movies for a while and just say, fuck it. Just, you know what I mean? Like, why not? You know what I mean?
I got a feeling that, well, you know, there's the main X-Men movies are still going to be PG-13.
Yeah, I can't.
I have a feeling, because when they showed the cast for a second in the room, I have a feeling they must have been because like they were just probably filming or starting filming X-Men 3 around that time, because I could actually imagine saying, just bring them from a set on over. They all just stand in the room. It'd be a fun, quick little cameo. I think it was Kelsey Grammer, who was Beast, maybe, who closed the door.
I don't. Was it Kelsey Grammer, or was it? It went by so fast that I wanted to almost see it again. Or was it the guy from X-Men? Or not X-Men Origins, but First Class.
It could be the new guy. I'm not sure. He looked a little older, but he was not on makeup, so it could be different. Or maybe they just got a mixed match of just different of the X-Men from different generations threw him in that room, because I saw it was James McAvoy, not Patrick Stewart. But I knew they're doing the Phoenix movie right now, which I'm not sure if it's X-Men, the Phoenix, or if it's just Phoenix Solo, how they're treating this thing. But I'm gonna assume that one, if they just got them in their wardrobe and just had them come onto that set right there, it wouldn't surprise me, because I want to say Quicksilver was wearing a Nirvana shirt. So would that next one be the 90s then? Are they doing that?
Well, I think so, because it's like the 70s was Days of Future Past, then Apocalypse was 80s, so I'm assuming it's 90s. And my kind of theory has just been in this base for a while is that it's just gonna build up to, in a sense, meeting up with X-Men 2000. You know what I mean? I know they've kind of like switched things around and so on, but that's kind of how I looked at it. It's like it's going to kind of come up and just meet about there. Granted, they might start changing things from that point on and just having different timelines and so on, but that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm figuring something like that too. I'm just wondering, because now, Mike, they had all these plans for all these different things to do, because we've got our own mutant universe, and now that's kind of going off, and they're like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure if we're just going to finish up these movies. I'll be honest. New Mutants, a lot of people, we said this when it came out, when the trailer came out, a lot of people were jizzing their pants over that New Mutants trailer, but that movie does not look good to me. It just looks like every other Blumhouse movie, but they're saying mutant instead of, people with powers or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. That one it just didn't jump out at me as much as possible. I don't know. One of those weird things where
it looks like one of those misguided things, like they liked it when we did something with comedy. They like this X-Men genre-bending stuff. Let's make it a horror film this time.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll see it anyway. I'll see anything X-Men at the end of the day, but it is one of those ones where, yeah, I'm not too sure. It's like trying to be a little bit different. Like X-Men is one of those things. Like I feel like they should do one more movie, like do the '90s one or whatever like that, and then almost have a hard reboot of X-Men. And just because X-Men almost needs to start from scratch one more time, because it's still stuck in that 2000 style at the end of the day. I mean, it's progressed, of course, and Deadpool's made it progress like way farther than other ones. But it is at the point where it's just like, they had a good run. This is like the ideal time where it's like you can do a reboot, but don't do a reboot with Origins, because that's kind of always been the problem with X-Men movies. I think out of like the 12 or 13 X-Men movies that there are, like 5 or 6 of them are Origin movies. So it's like, no origin.
Just jump in. They're already a team.
Just jump in. Like, have the X-Men be older, because I don't really like the teenage X-Men. Like, I mean, it's like, I know that X-Men, that's kind of what they're known for back in the olden days. It's like, oh, they're the teenagers. But in the 60s, that was the only person you were selling comic books to, were like 10-year-old boys that you wanted to be like, this is what you can be like when you're a teenager. But nowadays, we're kind of like adults. It's like, no, make the X-Men like, make the core characters in their 30s or so, and then you can always have like the token teenage kids on the team, you know what I mean, and do whatever with that. But just have it jump straight in, be like, here's the X-Men, here's your main ones like Wolverine and Cyclops and Jean and Beast and so on, and then we're gonna throw in a couple other ones just to kind of break it up and keep the the team a little bit different. And I think that's almost what they need to do.
Yeah.
And make them go full X-Men, like full on in their costumes, exactly how you want them to look, and so on. Don't skip it all. Make them go interdimensional. Have the space come involved. Make it get all fucking weird and shit. Because it's like, have the Savage Land and so on. Like, don't just almost get rid of the grounded in reality stuff. I think that's just kind of what X-Men needs to do, and just really needs to get bizarre.
I think that's the next step, and who knows? I mean, I don't want to try and get too many. I don't want to try and get us back on this topic too much. Maybe Marvel, because Marvel's smart too. Marvel's quick to adjust and figure out what they're doing next. I mean, by Marvel Studios. So maybe they'll realize, we did all this civil rights analogy stuff. What if now they go to weird, crazy shit? 'Cause from Phase 4, they're going to focus more on interdimensional stuff. So, and like space stuff. So who knows? Maybe that's the next spot for X-Men when they finally fuse with the rest of the Marvel Universe, which is what they're working towards once they're done with all these other movies.
Yeah, and who knows? That's going to be an interesting one there, too, because that's going to be you may get what you want, or you may not. Like, I know that's it's just one of those ones. It's a teeter-totter, you know what I mean? You're going to get like the non-ballsy approach for sure. I could probably much guarantee that. But maybe they might do it right, but maybe they might put in that more family-friendly style. I don't know. It's like, you just don't know. But I just think X-Men is one of those ones. It's like, it's about time. And this comes from somebody who actually likes every single fucking X-Men movie and probably likes it more than, you know, most people in the world. But it is that point where it's like, you know what? Sometimes you just need a new take on it. At the end of the day, you can't always just have the same thing. You got to like change it up, and sometimes that's kind of good. Throw some new characters in there, you know, throw, you know, a new kind of take on it, and just start going full X-Men. I feel like that's the key thing is don't just be like partial X-Men where it's kind of like, they're X-Men, they got mutant powers, you know, they fight normal crime. No, go like the extreme, like have Sentinels going crazy and having like big old battles, and have Mojo come in there, and just, you know, anything and everything that's just kind of weird from like the cool 80s and 90s period of X-Men, I think would be the way to go.
Well, love or hate the current Marvel Studio movies, they've definitely reached the point where they've gone crazy, because I would not have imagined them fighting Thanos, this big CG guy, and then seeing Iron Man and Doctor Strange and Spider-Man fight, like, you know, a guy with telekinesis and a dude with the big hammer. I don't know the names of of his henchmen, but that's one of those things. Well, I guess weirder things have happened in the Marvel movies by this point, so why not go the full distance with that on the X-Men characters, on the X-Men front?
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of the thing, you know, it's like, you can go there. I mean, why not? It's just one of those ones. Like, let's just go the distance. And then just, I think the other thing too is like, you gotta start putting the X-Men full on in their costumes. You know what I mean? Like, everybody needs to be looking like Psylocke in the last one. Like, everyone
in a one-piece swimsuit. That's what you're saying. Everybody in a
one-piece swimsuit. Because that was the one thing about Psylocke is like, they did Psylocke. It's like, oh shit, she looks just like the character in the comic books. And it's like, well, too bad nobody else looks the same, because now she sort of stands out like a sore thumb. But okay.
Well, when that movie ends, because I didn't really like Apocalypse that much, it's not my god-awful movie.
It's still fun, but it's kind of like, it's one of the weaker of the X-Men movies.
Yeah, but which is too bad, because it was like such back on the right track with Days of Future Past. But they all are in some kind of cool new variation of their costumes that look a little comic bookish by the very end when the doors close. Because like when Mystique's like, okay, I'm the leader of the X-Men now, let's train. Yeah, it was fucking.
I think that was the part that brought the movie down more than anything else. I'm like, are you kidding me? You take like one of the biggest villains that's never been good. Like, she's just a terrible person. You try to make her like now like this, almost like not even like an anti-hero, just a full-on like hero. And it's like, that was literally just because she just brings money into the fucking door as far as an actress. So, like, that's the only reason why you have Mystique fucking leading the X-Men.
Yeah, and but these, I don't remember what they all looked like, but I want to say they all had more colorful versions of their costumes. I want to say Cyclops, his eye beams looked cool and had some kind of weird effect. Had like some weird, not eye beams, his visor, his glasses had some weird kind of more sci-fi-ish kind of look to him. So if I remember correctly, I want to say they all had some cool costume by the end. But
I think so.
Who knows?
I think, yeah. So hopefully if they just keep that on the whole time in the next ones, like, don't even fucking take that off. You sleep in those clothes.
We like a cartoon. Like, we don't want to do more character models of them in like regular clothes. They're always going to be in their superhero clothes.
Well, in the cartoon though, they have like they always have their regular clothes too, but it's like the same outfit always, no matter what.
But I'm just thinking of like other shows. I want to say like in Batman, not always, but Batman he was either in the bat outfit or that tan suit. Maybe if he was in bed, he was like in a boxers and t-shirt. But beyond that, it was always like one of those two things.
Yeah, he's got two outfits.
He's a billionaire, but he has like these 3 different outfits.
Exactly.
Maybe sometimes the mask is off. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like he's got halfway on, but yeah. But no, at the end of the day, I still look really forward to the new X-Men movies, and Deadpool was like a perfect example of like getting it really dialed in. So hopefully, because I think he has something about Apocalypse too. It's like, I know we're just going on, but I think that movie was still like in the process of being made before they realized how awesome Deadpool and like Logan were going to be. So when that kind of came out, it was like, oh, well, Deadpool already came out. So people just had this like expectation that like Apocalypse was going to be in the same like caliber as Deadpool. But it's like, well, this movie was actually made like probably before Deadpool and just took longer to come out. So I think now knowing like the Deadpool and the Logan and all that stuff, it would be kind of like shameful not to make that new X-Men really fucking awesome.
Yeah, I can't even talk right now. I'm all out of talking. I think the Phoenix movie will probably be good. I think that they probably learned from their mistakes. So
yeah, I think so. And it's just like, I think it'll be, if that is the last one of them all or close to it, like, cool. They'll probably, because the Fox thing will probably last a little bit longer than you think. Like, it's not like it's going to switch over instantaneously. There'll probably be a Deadpool 3, and there'll probably be, a couple other X-Men movies and so on. They're going to get, like, the most they can out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think they probably have, like, a couple more films contracted. Once those are done, that's when they're probably going to start trying, okay, how can we merge this with Marvel so we can get another 10 years out of this thing at least.
But other than that, though, that's a good place to wrap it all up at. All kinds of good Deadpoolness to be had, fun times ahead, but make sure to check out oldmanorange.com for more comics, podcast, animation, videos, and more. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunigan.
We'll see you some other time.
Later, folks. Yeah, I was trying to...
Thanks again for listening to the Old Man Orange podcast. Be sure to check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, comics, animations, videos, and a whole lot more. You can easily support the show by buying something from one of our Amazon links on the website or in the show's description itself. Doesn't cost you a penny, but every single thing you buy from there just by using that link to take you to Amazon helps us out a bit. You can also really help the show out, though, by spreading the word the good old-fashioned way. And rate and review us on all the sites that you find this podcast. Anything from iTunes to Podbean to Newgrounds, YouTube, you name it. Any little bit helps. Give a sub and share it to your friends, family, any jamoke you see out on the street. You let them know about Old Man Orange podcast. And be sure to check out the Old Man Orange comic book Pizza Boys on both Amazon and Comixology. Till then, we'll see you some other time.